without setting foot outside this free weekly live talk show to find out how easy it is to watch at home and learn about your color computer. At the CoCoNation, more than 9 million men and women have participated in the community without setting foot outside their homes. And now at home in your spare time, you can see what's happening, or even join the discussion. Choose from any one of these segments: panel intros, project updates, acquisitions, Coco Thoughts, featured interviews and events, the Game On Challenge, news, Ron's Garage, Coco commercials, show coverage, panel goodbyes, or you can join one of our extra shows. You can choose from the Game On Challenge Live or Coco Tech. Join the CoCoNation right now.
Click the link for the free information TJB Chris spoke about. Then decide if you want to watch the CoCoNation Live Show, the world's leading live weekly talk show featuring the Tandy Color computer, its siblings, cousins, and red-headed stepchildren. Visit thecoconation.com. There is no obligation, and no salesman will visit you. Visit thecoconation.com.
The CoCoNation show is an unscripted, live, and interactive broadcast. Anything can and will happen. The views and opinions expressed by members of the panel and the live audience are their own, and not necessarily those of the CoCoNation show, its sponsors, affiliates, or subsidiaries. Open minds are encouraged, and a sense of humor is recommended. Thank you for being a part of the CoCoNation.
Radio Shack? Okay.
What?
The 80s called.
Welcome to the CoCoNation, the world's first live and interactive talk show featuring the Tandy color computer and its hardware cousins.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to the CoCoNation Show, episode 402, which I think means webpage not found or something like that.
I thought that was 404.
That's 420.
404.
404 or 420. You could do 420. I guess we could do a special episode then.
410 is a whole new show.
Yeah.
We can have Ronnie Chong on.
Yeah, exactly.
Hey, man.
All right.
I need my Coco fix.
Okay, so on the panel today, we have yours truly first up. Then we got Ron Deluxe.
Hey, what's
and
up?
Henry Gernhardt.
Hi, folks. Welcome to the CoCoNation. My name's Henry, and today you're going to be as surprised as I am when I open this box.
And no, we got
Can't wait.
surprises. Let's see, L Curtis Boyle
Welcome to the show, everyone.
and David Ladd.
Why, hello, everyone, and welcome to the show. It's been a while since I've been on, but I'm ready to see where this show goes.
We've missed you.
And we have some revenge for you.
Uh-oh.
Next over, Ken Waters.
Well, I can't really follow that, so just hello.
All right, Rick Euland.
Yeah, I'll go with him. Yo.
And we got a wingnut.
Good afternoon. Hello.
Hey, Rod.
All right, Jason, the Coco Man.
Howdy, howdy. And I've got my Diet Dr. Pepper, and I've got some water. So let's get started.
Okay. And Kevin Holloway.
Hello.
Alan.
I'm sorry in advance, everyone. Enjoy the show.
All right. And
we should just play that every week.
And we've been joined by Nick Marentes.
Yeah, hello everyone, and what the last guy said.
Okay. And on the bottom row, we got Marco.
Marco and Mocha.
Okay. Now, in the chat. Let's see.
Oh, you got a late joiner on the panel too, by the way.
Oh, Jeffrey Drywater, you just made it in the nick of time.
Reconstituted.
All right, in the chat, we got Kevin Holloway, Michael Zwiffle, Wayne Campbell, Julian Brown, Albert Marsh, TJB Chris, Exile in Paradise, Coco Man, Jim Rye, Mark Siegel, Brian Walsh, Tom Eric Gunderson, 2K Compliant, 8 Bits in the Basement, William Athing, and Brian Blake. And we're caught up on the chat. And there's the break key sneaking in. Okay, so first thing on the agenda today is happy birthday, David.
Happy birthday.
Oh, no.
And I haven't clued anyone else in yet because you joined a little too early. Do you think we can manage a song?
No,
probably
Here
not.
we go.
No.
Oh, yeah.
We'll just move on down the list.
Jason, where's your brother? He could sing for us.
No, he couldn't.
Yeah, you're right.
Count us down, Mark B.
All right, here we go. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, David. Happy birthday to you.
Don't we have a
Network lag scattered all over the place.
And I'm sure that just synced up perfectly on the stream.
Absolutely. It was epic. We should do this again sometime. No, we shouldn't.
Now, it's time for a CoCoNation sing-along.
Do we have any viewers left?
All right. So how many moose?
2K Compliance only comment was, "Oh my."
So how many moose just ran for the Arctic Circle?
All of them.
Now, how many of us eat them there?
No, that's only depending on how many of them don't want to be lunch.
The Earth's rotation has slowed.
Okay, moving on.
We don't. Eric Gunderson, on the other hand, says beautiful, but I think he's being sarcastic.
Did he mean boo? Beautiful.
The loosely coupled multiple process choir.
That's it.
That's a good one. I like it. I like
us.
that.
Boy,
Thank you, James Jones.
So David, you've turned about the same shade as your shirt.
I don't know what you're talking about.
Totally worth it.
Maybe Jason's shirt. I'm not sure which. But...
Meow, 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 meow.
Okay.
Why are you channeling Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood?
Meow, 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 meow.
We all like you, meow meow.
Meow, 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 meow.
You gotta remember, Henrietta always did a meow meow.
I'll tell you later, Henry. There's a huge backstory here.
Uh-oh. I just walked into something I shouldn't have.
Yeah, no, it's fine.
And,
That's what everyone says every week.
And they keep coming back, strangely enough.
Our new slogan.
Yeah.
So yes, 60, you're gonna have to rewind the show and watch from the beginning because you did just miss something horrific.
Oh.
Henry, save us.
All right.
Okay. It's Jason's
Camera
cat.
switch. I'm going to go to, I need the overhead. There we go. And I'm going to turn off the pip. So I think I was during one of these shows, I decided, I was like, okay, this looks like fun. And I'd mentioned it about the hard drive, I think. It's an eBay listing, relatively inexpensive, supposed to have a hard drive in it. And my knife just shed one of its
And you
necessary screws.
You didn't wipe out your address.
Oh no, that's fine. I wiped out the phone number. That's all I was really worried about.
Oh, okay.
Hold on, let me send you a bunch of texts. Is your refrigerator running?
Let's see what we got going on over here. And
no, it's been broken for
Korean
months.
Coco 2 box.
Yeah, that's what it looks like. Let's see what's in the Coco 2 box.
It might be a Korean Coco 2
There's
box.
a Commodore 64 in there, right?
Early model Coco 2 with the
that's an
melted
American.
Melty keys.
This
It's the early one.
right here
I got one
is
of those.
what I'm wondering about, because this was in there. And when I saw this, I was like, I got to get myself this thing to figure out what's going on with it. It looks like it looks like it's an IDE device. It might be RLL or MFM. I'm not really sure.
How many connectors do you have?
It looks like it's either IDE or SCSI.
Oh, IDE.
IDE or SCSI.
Okay, yeah, that's
IDE.
all right. So I'm thinking
Looks like
IDE on this one.
Too short for SCSI.
Yeah, I have no idea what kind of what's actually on this thing.
Connor?
So you're going to need yourself a Glenside IDE adapter.
I'm probably going to need to grab one. But I'm not.
How many pins on the end of that? 40 or 50?
On this?
Yeah.
There's 40.
Yeah,
40. That looks like
40
IDE.
pin.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, because there's a lot of
Too
extra
short.
jumpers on the front that.
Did you
SCSI
get the
would
12,
have.
12
That's
pages
probably going
of-
to be like drive select or something like that. I'm not really
Master
sure what those
slave.
would be.
Okay, yeah, if it's 40, it's IDE.
But
So, Henry,
yes,
just a recommendation, because I've done this to, well, drives that are newer than that one. But you can use one of those USB to IDE adapters.
Okay.
Then under Linux, do DD and just image the drive, and then you should be able to mount it in VCC or XROR if it has IDE, or Mame.
Yep, and I will definitely look for that. In the meantime, what the heck is this thing?
What is this thing?
What gotta be the interface?
This says Smart Compliance says this replaced with CoMPAQ Square HDD. So
Another drive.
It looks like it's supposed to pull open or something.
Oh, it goes into a drive bay.
It's a laptop drive in a box, isn't it?
The little tab is for you. The little tab is where you would pull
remove
it out.
it.
Pull it out of the bag.
Pull it out of the
Let
bay,
me
yeah.
grab a screwdriver here real quick.
Screwdriver.
Let's play how long it takes to break it.
Pretty much. That's the whole idea. I think
It's
it's
scary
completely
to pack
apart.
it like that.
Will it break?
And that's
I don't
the
know.
Coco 2 that's equipped with the little wake up buttons.
Yeah,
Did you get a page of sector errors with that drive?
Oh, I haven't even this. I just opened it up. I have not opened this thing up yet, and you can see like they've already disconnected the. Don't go anywhere. You stay. Yeah, you can stay there. They'll work. You can see right over here that I don't even have the. I don't even have power hooked up to it.
Oh,
So
okay.
I literally just opened this thing up right here, live on the CoCoNation. So
It was a live unboxing for all of us to see.
yeah,
I would be worried it'd be beat
So,
to heck sliding
if
around
you-
inside there.
If you had all the pieces that it originally consisted of.
Oh, there we
this would
go.
be An
Oh,
awesome system.
hard drive.
Yeah.
it's also a hard drive. Let's see. This
It's an
says-
IBM.
Yeah. What are we?
The
DT.
Start.
Made in Hungary, warranties void. It doesn't say. Does it say 6,304 cylinders, 16 heads?
That's the mapping.
Yeah.
So
Okay,
IBM.
that
So it's
makes a
emulator.
lot more sense.
It probably has 4 heads, maybe 6, but it's extrapolated out.
Yeah. So, can anybody tell just by looking at this what the size of this thing is?
It's on there somewhere.
get
It's
close
an
to
IBM
that.
drive.
hard drive, like a
Yeah, it's an
Yeah,
IBM drive.
Get
Well,
closer.
three-
so we can read
It's
it.
probably
5.
6,000 by 16 by 63, right?
Da, 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 da.
Is that a magnetic screwdriver?
Megabytes worth.
No.
Anyway.
Yeah, let's see. Not quite able to read it yet.
Something right there. 300.
Looks like it's about a 30 meg.
No, it's
Ooh.
too new for that.
June 98.
Oh, there we go.
32.
No,
30
not
meg.
30 gig, 30 meg.
It's
wait.
it's a
June
three,
of 98.
25.
3.25 meg.
Is it 3
Gig.
or 30?
Yeah, 3.25 gig. It says there on the
Yeah.
Holy
right
crap!
hand
There's
middle.
a 3 gigabyte hard drive sitting inside this Coco, and it's a
Why?
Coco 2. What
Yeah.
the heck?
This probably went to some sort of a laptop.
Yeah, it's a laptop
Has
hard
an
drive.
exchangeable
Oh,
bay.
yeah, it's one of
Yeah.
them real thick laptop drives with the connector to fit it into a slot. Which
Yeah, into a
why is
drive
that
bay.
in the CoCo then? Why does
Yeah,
it have
that's
that
my
extra
question.
connector thing?
Well,
What's it
why is
doing
the
in the Coco?
the other hard drive in
That's
there?
Get the data from it and find out.
Because you could just plug that hard drive in without the case and the little ribbon
Yeah.
cable there. You
Right,
Just plug a regular
so-
cable into it. So why is it in that package?
Oh, it's screwed. It's okay.
That
That's
Coco.
screwed into the
That-
mount.
that's
I will
a
mention
secret.
too, OS9 will handle a 4 gig drive just fine with
So this
multi-sector
may very
clustering.
well.
So
I may be very well. Okay, so but I'm looking at this has.
I don't think that goes with the Coco.
probably not. but
No.
I'm just saying
Yeah,
it would
this is
fit.
still-
It would fit as a proper drive without having to partition it.
Yeah, because this is definitely a Coco 2, not a 3, and it's not a 3 repacked into a 2. But yeah, okay. So
Oh no,
I'm interested-
OS9 level 1 can handle that 4 gig as well. So I mean, it can run on a Coco 1 or 2 with that size.
I wonder. I gotta wonder. So
much
this
did
is
you pay
definitely
for
this
this
is definitely
package?
investigation worthy.
Right?
It probably,
The Men in Black
probably
will come
wine.
to your house when you open it up.
It probably wine.
If
Men in
they
Black.
do, if they do, I'll just simply ask that they don't neuralize me until after I've had a chance to work for them.
Right.
Oh, I get to go meet aliens? Cool. Do they use Cocos?
Right.
So I have one
you
question for you,
purchased
Henry.
this-
You pulled
Yeah.
out the cover and with the keyboard came with it. Is it actually attached and stuck to it, or did you just grab it out as one chunk?
It just came out as one chunk. It wasn't even connected.
Oh, it's got a.
So
Look at this, the screwed.
Someone screwed it in. from
Yeah,
the
because that
bottom.
normally is
Yeah.
free floating and just doesn't attach to the case.
interesting. So this has been
And that's the non-screw
Modified.
version. And that hole is normal, by the way. That hole in the middle.
And that hole is completely normal, and that's the evil keyboard that can't be fixed.
okay. So this is the one that needs to be replaced then, and that's perfectly fine. So, but looking at this, it's like I might have some very interesting things to investigate with this
Right.
bad boy.
On those drives.
Do you know where it
Yeah.
came from?
Absolutely no clue whatsoever. It was on an eBay listing, and I looked at that, and I'm like, I want to see what I can do with this.
Yeah. I imagine those hard drives just came out of a PC somewhere.
Yeah.
Maybe and maybe not, because this was sitting like in the listing. This was sitting in here.
Yeah.
This was shown as being part and parcel with it, so it came
Yeah.
as a
Right.
lot to behold.
And obviously, what the Coco was supposed to do had nothing whatever concern in this guy's mind.
You know what?
This, and I'm gonna screw the keyboard on here.
If I have passed away and my wife was going to send somebody a computer and there was extra stuff to put in the box,
Oh, she'd just
she would
fill it
do
up?
that.
She would do it.
Because she has no idea if it goes
Yep.
with it or not.
Well, I am going to pack this up now, and we can move on to the next thing.
Okay.
What did you pay for this little package?
Somewhere around range of, I think it was around
$1.3 million.
No. Actually, shipping included. I think I didn't pay more than about 110.
Oh, wow.
That's worthwhile.
Yeah, I wound up making an offer on it, and the guy accepted the offer, and it was relatively cheap. I'd have to look back at my receipts to see what I paid for it, but it was on the order of $100 to $110, if I recall correctly.
And when you shake
What if
those
it
drives,
turns
they
out-
don't make noise like a ball bearing in there or anything.
I'm not even trying to shake those drives yet. I want to investigate them, and see if they'll actually spin up.
They spin when they
And,
spin. Yeah.
So, David, you were saying that if I use DD, it'll give me DD will give me the dump without having to worry about using, or without having to worry. Yeah, I can just do a DD and it'll grab everything. Is there anything
Only if you
special
do
I
it
need to do?
correctly.
Under Linux, there shouldn't be, because it should just be the DD, space IF equals /dev/ whatever the drive's root descriptor is, and then, OF equals your output file, and hit enter, and it should go until the system finally errors out that it's hit the end of file.
Okay, and with that said, there's not a way to do like a flux. It's hard drives aren't something you grab a flux transition map
IDE
from,
drives, you do not have access to the flux level stuff. That was something that went away with MFM and RLL.
right? Okay,
IDE is the circuit board that you're talking to is the controller. It's
gotcha.
it's you don't have access to what's going from the head read write amp like you would with MFM or RLL.
All right, and let me dive a little bit deeper in this. Since that is the controller, does that in fact mean that there is a way, if you bypass said controller and use black magic of electronics, to get a flux mat from an IDE drive?
No.
You would basically have to build your own device that would go in between the heads and the stepper.
Right.
And IDE drives also contain a EEPROM or an EEPROM that contains how the drive was formatted, which is one of the recovery processes even on SATA drives to this very day, is that each drive that has the exact same logic board, if the logic board died, you actually have to transplant that EEPROM from the old board to the new board just to be able to read the original content, because that has how it was encoded.
In fact, Google disk data recovery on YouTube sometime, and there's some really excellent videos about what you've got to do to get data off of a busted IDE.
Because that control board is also doing your spindle speeds, controls,
amazing.
and your head controls.
Yeah, did you
along
ever
with the
start
read
a
amps and
drive
stuff.
up and get a headbanger's ball? Bang, bang, bang. Head goes.
Not had that happen with the hard drive.
Oh, I've had that with a few drives, especially in Packard Bell machines back in the day. Oh yes.
I think to myself, that doesn't sound good.
So what if it turns out that hard drive is the missing Bitcoin hard drive?
Ooh.
Oh, I'm rich now.
He'll be going to all the fests now.
There's something crazy on here.
All you need's the password.
It's
You're
there.
gonna be sponsoring the fest.
It's not Windows 2000 compliant, is it?
ABC 1, 2, 3.
It doesn't matter if it's Windows 2000 compliant or not. Even on Windows 11, you can still use floppy drives.
All right. Well, do we have any other project updates?
And welcome,
I
Frederick.
guess not.
Cricket.
Thank you.
Oh, Frederick has joined us.
Hello.
Hello.
Okay. Well, I guess. So that's it for project updates. 6:20 after.
Game on?
Yeah, you want to do the game on, or do we have any panel discussions?
Well, I have this lovely faux wood paneling behind me.
Ooh,
classic
70s.
Yes.
I always hated that stuff. This is going to bring up a really interesting panel discussion.
Oh, really? That's the stuff that my dad put in the house that they got right when I was born.
Okay, I need to save us here.
Please.
You know what?
Game on.
Yeah.
Welcome everybody to the CoCoNation Game On Challenge of the Week results video. This week we played Annilator. We had a total of 14 players. Tied for 13th, we had Marco and Mark B with 1,200. Sloopy Malibu, 2,700. Frederick, 3,300. Mr. Dave, 6309, 3,800. 8 Bits in the Basement, 5,000. Jason Warrens, 5,200. TJB Chris, 6,000. Shenley, 6,300. Ed Rhodes, 7,600. Jim Rye, 7,800. Canadian Retro Things, 8,000. L Curtis Boyle, 10,100. And this week's number one score belongs to Dr. Ted with 13,000. Thanks everybody that played. We'll see you again next week.
You know, the sucky part is that score I lost because I didn't hit screen capture for it disappeared was actually higher than that. Darn it.
And the
So
CoCoNation
you
salutes
claim.
Dr. Ted.
Salute! And here I am playing a violin for Curtis.
Yeah.
With his alleged score.
Yeah, I keep
That
saying,
he
oh
has
yeah.
no proof of.
Pictures or it didn't happen.
Yes.
Don't you know you can just make up anything and say anything these days and nobody believes you anyway, so you just have to believe.
I think
That's
all
right.
we have is a fuzzy picture, just like Sasquatch.
Yeah. That blur, that was honestly 17,000. Actually, I think it was 15 something, but it doesn't matter.
You're right. It doesn't matter.
Curtis just wants
Once the
his name
cash
to be
prizes
saluted.
start happening, then it matters. Sorry, go ahead, Ken.
I was just saying, Curtis just wants his name to be saluted because it's usually just cursed for the length of the news. So,
yeah.
And not just 9. Oh, wait a minute.
Oh, I gotta find my neck pillow. Thanks for reminding me.
You're gonna need. There's a lot of news today.
okay, so I couldn't find any write-ups on Annilator in any of the magazines. I didn't look all that hard, but
No, it's part of a tape magazine, so they didn't review the game separately for those.
So there is some tips and tricks in the Discord from the winner of the thing, the guy that just completely annihilated Curtis's score, Dr. Ted. Oh, I'm sorry. Am I rubbing it in?
You forgot the word alleged in front of score.
Oh, no, he had a real score. It was just lower than Dr. Ted's. His alleged score is higher.
Oh.
Alleged scores are the best scores.
Anyways, so some of his tips and tricks are that use the radar map to navigate instead of looking at the playfield. That's a good way to avoid smashing into the aliens that just kind of blink into existence. So given that you move faster horizontally than you do vertically, rather than trying to get above or below an alien that's coming at you, just move in the opposite direction of it. When a new stage loads, all the spawned enemies are either moving left or right, so try to destroy them going in one direction, and then you can just follow them and pick them off as you go.
So
was I going in the other direction?
Was I imagining it, or that kind of issue where they would just be invisible for a bit and spontaneously form in on top of you? Did that happen more on the left side than on the right side?
I think you were drunk.
Okay. That's a possibility.
No, I never really noticed that. I think it's because you're moving so fast left and right that
because they always seem to get me in the same spot on the screen.
They tend to not draw like that for that kind of that frame of when they come onto the screen. If they're being,
if you're moving, it basically disappears. If it's scrolling on until you stop, then it'll suddenly appear.
Yeah, so it's not drawing them, but it's there, but it's not drawing them. And then by the time you stop, it's like right on top of you. Or by the time it's hit a new draw cycle or whatever, it's on top of you. So, so around stage 3 or so, start looking for points where you can get as many enemies on the screen as you can at once. And then use your smart bomb on them, which is, yeah. And I guess I remember him saying it. I didn't see it, but he destroyed an entire wave with one smart bomb. They just managed to find the perfect spot where they're all crossing each other and blow them all up. So I don't know. Does anybody else have other tips and tricks, or?
I know when you is this the
Alas,
game?
no.
When you shoot at them, you had to hit the tops and not the bottoms.
Yeah.
Yeah, it tended to be certain spots that the shot would just go right through them. So
I think you end up going right between their legs.
Found a review.
Oh, you did? Oh,
yeah.
Right. I keep forgetting about that site.
It's a bit broken right now. My browser is actually claiming it. This site might be compromised on that because it's probably not HTTPS, though it does say it is. But anyway, yeah, here if you want everyone read that out for their audio listeners or whatever part of it you want to.
Well, I've never seen it before, so an unfinished version of Defender is about the only way I can categorize this game. I look at it and I think it has promise at first, but then realize all kinds of stuff is missing. Where are the humans? Where are the enemies beyond the undersized landers who don't shoot and have no intelligence whatsoever? What's with the flicker and crummy collision detection? Why would I want to press a key to play another game? Somebody named Doug Kelly wrote this in 1983. Given the state of the Coco software at the time, I can only assume or hope that this was part of a cassette magazine's monthly collection or a magazine type in program. So yes, it was a magazine collection one. There's so many Defender clones out there that I have played worse, but that doesn't mean that this is any good. Luckily, that's why we all had software reviews back then, to make sure we could at least pick one from the masses worth having. Although,
and he gave it a D plus.
This one was never reviewed, so
except his.
Yeah. And well, as I always say to everybody that complains about these games, hey, you could always go into the code and fix it yourself.
You'll have to disassemble it manually, of course, first, but
yeah, well, you know.
No, for a magazine game, I don't think it was too bad.
Yeah, I mean, it passed the time.
It was fun.
And I'm pretty sure Doug was learning assembly as he was going here, because like we've mentioned, there's been a few little glitches. It really slows down if you get multiple chips on the screen at once.
Mm-hmm.
Which, machine language speeds probably shouldn't be happening. So I'm guessing he probably was just kind of learning.
So if it's a magazine game, that means there's actual listing somewhere?
No, it's one of those tape compilation magazine games or magazines. So you get like 10 programs per issue or something. That was one of them.
We did have a listing. It would be data 132/37-42-62. What are you going to do with that?
Type a lot. Run Rainbow Check Plus while you're at it.
Right.
So, yeah, I don't know. Is there much to say about this game? It was, as that review said, it was another one of the Defender clones.
Yeah.
What else could you say about it?
Yeah. As a learning exercise for the programmer, I don't mind it. You can get used to some of the quirks. I think you mentioned when you're reading out the stuff from Dr. Ted there, like if you watch the radar more than you watch the main screen to see when a chip's going to come up so it isn't invisible and you run into it. That kind of definitely helps. I also found it much easier to follow the ships to kill them rather than try to, hit them head on.
Yep. Well, that's why, like Dr. Ted was saying, destroy them all that are going in one direction first. Then you can follow the other ones and just pick them off at your leisure.
You can also kind of get their patterns down, because I think there's only 4 or 5 patterns. They're fixed patterns. Like some are just straight horizontal, some just go diagonally back and forth at a certain height, and there's others that do more complicated patterns. But once you figure those out, you can kind of line them up easier.
As you get into later levels, it seems to add more patterns to them. So
yeah.
Yeah, well, if nobody else has anything to say about that, I guess
I will read 2 from the chat. Michael Zweifel says, I didn't play the game. My best way to play. And Brian Blake says, yeah, I was thankful for even Donkey Monkey. I'd have played this back then.
Yeah, this is definitely a game that I would have played. It wouldn't have been.
Yeah, considering you would have bought the tape
list,
for like $6 and you would have had, 9 other programs on there, probably some utilities or something, but it's not bad for something that cheap, I think.
Yeah.
$bucks at the local Radio Shack for a game. So, yeah.
Well, Radio Shack would have charged between 20 to 40, depending what format you bought it on. So,
right, yeah, I'm just going to get a program pack or something. Yeah, you're at $30. I can get 3 of these.
Yep. So, see anything else in the talk there in the chat?
What was that?
Something bleeding through from Wingnut.
Yeah, Wingnut, you're supposed to be watching this show, not some other show.
Not playing on the radio.
You started the news yet.
You're not supposed to watch something else until the news starts.
That's my radio. Somebody got on a local repeater. I'm sorry about that.
Yeah, squelch is a horrible thing, isn't it?
Oh, don't let it happen again. Don't let it happen again, especially not during my segment.
Hey, no. You time what you do is you link in the repeater so that they can talk Coco over the air while we're doing our show.
There you go.
We'll just barf this out on FM.
We'll just barge in whatever conversation they're having. It's going to be about Coco for the next 5 hours. There they go.
Okay, so the other game that we played this week was Devious. Which
Now
is
you're starting
a
to sound like Sloopy.
well, like I don't know, it just all of a sudden escaped me there. I wanted to say Xevious, which is the real game, but no, Devious. And so there was a little bit of chat that I saw from like 8 Bits in the Basement, and his son thought it was a really slow, boring game. So I see you suggested the double speed poke.
Yeah, only works in the Coco 3 if you're running on real hardware. Of course, you can overdrive an emulator, whatever you want. But
and it's a little bit of a slower version of that game, but I specifically put it on a little bit of a easier level with level 4, so that everybody would have a chance to at least play it for a little bit and not die quickly. And
yeah, and it's good enough because you didn't pick the easiest level either. You picked kind of a middle of the range one. So
by about 10 or 15,000 points, it actually starts getting pretty hard with lots of things shooting at you. And
yeah, and you can only have, 3 sets of bullets going up the screen and 1 bomb at a time. So rapid
like
fire
that,
doesn't totally work either. Like if you just turn on a rapid fire joystick adapter, it'll empty out pretty quick, and then you'll have to sit there and wait to fire again.
You got a rhythm fire.
Yeah. My one tip is that if you kind of know when the aliens are going to start coming down, because it follows the same rough pattern, is go up towards the top part of the screen, because then you can rapid fire, because it's 3 shots on the screen at once, no matter how close together they are. So if you're up like halfway or 3/4 of the way or something, then you can get 3 batches of shots really, really fast. So, but
actually, I found something that when you're trying to bomb things, if you got a bunch of things to bomb, if you just hold the fire button down, then
and you just straight bomb.
You stop firing and you just straight bombing, which means you're bombing a lot quicker. So
yeah,
it's still only 1 on the screen at a time, but when you're just firing, it's like bomb, shoot, 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 bomb, shoot, shoot, shoot.
Yeah.
I had better luck if I, on the ground items, put my target a little ahead of them, and then just start bombing and let them come into the target.
Yeah, as long as they don't shoot at you.
And then you have, dodge them. But if you had 2 of them side by side, if you hit them in the middle, eventually you get both of them.
Yep, that's true. If you get it right, you can kill 2 at once.
And that's similar to the arcade game. You can.
Yeah, I mean, obviously the graphics are much simpler. It's not a full color background. It's just wireframe, terrain, I guess you'd call it.
It's a Tron terrain.
Yeah, but it's basically got pretty well with the game elements. There's a little bigger boss things, and there's tanks that move and shoot at you and stuff, and it's not a bad little one. It's 16K RAM, so it didn't even require that much back in the day.
Yeah,
and the double speed on the Coco 3 does make it a bit more challenging.
Or if you're bored and you want to play a higher level, like choose a higher level, and I'm fine with that. You can submit a score for a higher level if you feel like it.
And you don't care if it's Coco 3 speed or Coco 1 and 2 speed, right?
Nope. Just has to be at least level 4 you start on.
The one thing I wish we did have is like Nick and I were trying to line up an interview with the author, Michael Duncan, of Xenion, which we have played on the Game on Challenge before, that Dicom sold, originally written in Australia. But originally he had a Coco 1-2 version of that. I would really have liked to have seen it to compare it with Devious to see how well they compared to each other. But
well, that one, that Australian one had a lot better background graphics and stuff. And
well, that was a Coco 3 version we've seen, though.
Yeah.
He made a Coco 1 and 2 version that was only sold in Australia. It was never sold in North America, but nobody seems to have it, including the original author, I think. Nick, do you remember if you mentioned if he had it? We tried to send him an interview with him too, by the way, and he just kind of disappeared.
I never saw ads for it down here, so maybe he wrote it and didn't really get to sell it.
Okay, I did see one ad in one of the Aussie, I can't remember if it was one of the magazines or one of the newsletters, but there was an ad for it for the Coco 1, 2, and 3.
All right.
64K required.
Yep.
Anyway, I like the game. It was one of my favorites when I first got it on the Coco from the distributed backups, and
that's
code. And we are playing it for 1 more week, so
yeah.
I guess Does anybody else have any tips or tricks for that game? Other than, don't lose your focus as you're playing at the easy parts.
Yeah, the shooting, you're bombing, like hold down the button to bomb if you're picking fire mode 2.
Well, I guess one of my things is whenever all the ships that are coming at you there's none on the screen, I go up to about halfway up the screen and I wait for them to come on, and then I can slowly back off to shoot them. That way
plus you get that faster rapid fire while you're up
Yeah.
there, but you do draw back, but it gives you
And it's
more
also
maneuvering
easier
room.
to get them all because if you're right at the bottom of the screen, sometimes you can't get from one side of the screen to the other fast enough to get them all. So
Yeah, there should be multiple reviews of that one, I think, if I remember correctly. I think that was in several magazines. You should have quite a few for next week.
It's not till next week, so.
Yeah.
I guess. Oh well.
Some live game footage.
8 Bits in the Basement says that Devious is great, even non-sped up. Just not for his son.
Yeah, his son thought it was too slow. What does his son think of the double speed? Does it make it more exciting for him, or at least bearable?
And while we wait for 8 Bits in the Basement to answer that, we will take a look at our live show from last week, from Thursday. And I don't believe Sloopy's here to talk about this, so I guess it's me.
Again?
As you can see, most people are playing Devious. Yeah, most, I think, looks like 2 people are playing Annilator. And I know I only played it for getting a score, and then I started playing Devious. So. Oh, and let's see. So 8 Bits in the Basement Son says it's better, but still not really a fan.
Okay.
I thought him being your son, Peter, he would have better taste.
Does his son like Xenion, though, on the Coco 3, I guess? Maybe he'd really like that one.
All right, so yeah, we actually had a good turnout. As you can see, 8 people playing right here. I think that was our maximum through the show. Oh wait, 9 people. We had a Marco join us. Well, even more here. Just
I
wait.
did. And I played both games.
Now we have 10 people playing.
Yeah, it was a good turnout.
So apparently having a crappy game and a good game is the way to go.
Better than 2 crappy games?
We do good games?
That's accident. Things happen.
So, yeah, fun was had by everybody, and I think, except for Curtis, who apparently was angry because he didn't.
I
get
had fun.
his,
It was just I
score.
just hit the key too quick and didn't get a chance to do the screen capture. My own fault.
That's why you need to record it with OBS or something. Then you just go back and cherry pick your frame.
That takes skill and stuff to set it up. Screw that.
Nah, it does not.
I'm a casual game player, so I'm not a professional like Ken.
I'm not even a game player. Heck, am I tied for bottom?
So you're a casual game player. That's why you beat me every week, and I'm the professional.
Well, the only reason I can do that is I've played these games for 45, 50 years, depending on the game. You know, because I've been playing them since they first came out.
I've played many of them since they first came out.
So exactly, Curtis. See, you are the professional then. You've been doing it the longest.
No, it just means I wasted my life and I finally am doing useful things like programming.
You should be programming some games. Jeez.
I have got a couple on the go, actually, but they're
quit
gonna
with
be
this
ways away.
Nitrous 9 stuff and get working on some games.
Oh, no, I'm doing
for us
games
to
under
play.
Nitrous 9. What are you talking about?
Exactly.
I have to get back to them, mind you, but I've still got to finish going through the Spectral Associates drive. There's a ton of stuff there I want to try to recover and maybe fix up a few things, and new Nitrous 9 releases, more stuff on Basic 9. The game I'm working on. There's just I wouldn't mind getting back to
New mouse driver for
what's the 8-bit guys game there that we started but never finished.
Oh, Petsky Robots.
Yeah, like I should get back to that and finish it too. It's just too much to do. I need collaborators. That's what I need. Nick, you want to write some Nitrous 9 games?
Not yet.
So you were planning on writing that under Nitrous 9, not DeckB?
For which one?
Petsky Robots.
No, that'll be under DeckB. I need total control of the machine for that.
Okay.
There's a lot of scrolling.
I'm going to say that's pretty intense right there.
Right.
Like one thing I'd like to do is write a game that uses the 80 or 40 column hardware text screens, because we now can do get put buffers on those, so you can actually move like big chunks of the screen around really, really fast, and you could make some sort of scrolling, using colored text or colored spaces to do sort of blocky set reset style graphics but slightly higher res at really fast speeds. So that would be a cool one to try.
Well, with the Gimme, you've got software redefinable fonts, don't you?
Nope.
No. Oh,
Nope.
well,
That's
that
hard
sucks.
coded. 128 characters on the Gimme, and that's it. Well, plus the
That
VDG ones.
That really sucks. Oh well, there goes that idea.
Sorry, I derailed you there, but back to Ken.
Oh, okay. So, as you can see, we had a good turnout last week. And for those of you that still don't know when we do this, it's Thursday nights at 8 o'clock Eastern Time in the Game On Challenge channel on Discord.
Oh, for us that don't observe daylight savings, when is the changeover? It's this month, isn't it?
Yeah, it's next weekend.
The 10th.
March.
Okay.
It was the ninth.
Because I know some of
So
our
next-
international viewers and Ron and I don't change, so I wanted to make sure
Next
we don't.
weekend or next week, the show will be at the same time. And for those of you that don't change time, the week after that, it'll be an hour later.
Bring forward.
Oh no. Does that mean I have to wake up an hour earlier for this show?
Yeah.
I mean, if you do daylight saving down where you're at, then it'll just it'll totally jack it up.
Well, I think Australia changes it at a different time than us, so.
Would you guys just all stop changing it already? Join with Ron and me. It's much smarter.
We're trending that way.
I hope so.
As a person that grew up in Saskatchewan, I cannot understand why we do this. It's so stupid.
It was supposed to save gas.
How?
It never did. How would it ever do that?
It's for the kids out at the waiting for
Bus
the
stop?
bus to come. Yeah.
Okay, so then they just come home in the dark rather than leave in the
Go to
dark.
School in the dark,
Well,
right?
Keep in mind that this was developed in an area where, in general, even during the depths of winter, during normal daylight time, like if you're in the lower 48, you don't have a problem with it being dark at 3 p.m. pretty much. So and north of that maybe there's an issue, but down this far south from it, even in the end of the time zone that I'm in, I don't see it get dark any earlier than about 3:45, 4 o'clock.
Yeah, I mean, if you live in Alaska or something there where you land of the midnight sun, well, then it's a bit different. But
Or the midnight darkness.
But we have these things we invented 100 and some odd years ago called lights.
Right. They're automatic. You just flip a switch.
They even have ones on the
ground.
street. They're called street lights.
That's why you can read at night.
Yes, but I think it was originally for the farmers because a lot of tractors back then didn't have lights. So,
Well, but that's the
No, they had
stupidest
lanterns.
part. Farmers work by the day. They don't work by the hour.
Yeah, that's
Yeah,
a myth.
exactly.
The sun comes up. It's time to go do the farm.
They could care less what time it is. It's just sunrise, sunset. That's all they care about.
Yep.
Coming from two farming families myself, I'm well aware of that.
Yep.
Time change notwithstanding, there will be a change in time. There will be a change in time of the show, not this
Yes.
Saturday, but the following Saturday. Let's see. The absolute
Yeah, I think
time.
it's going to be an hour earlier for us that don't change.
Okay, so next
I think
weekend
so,
it will
yeah.
still be at normal time. It's the weekend after the 15th show
Correct,
will
yeah.
be
The-
changed.
The United States of America observes the beginning of daylight saving time at 2 a.m. on March the 9th this year, which is a Sunday.
Which also, as a former firefighter, the 2 days, the Mondays after the time change, going either direction, are the most dangerous days to be on the road driving because the most accidents happen.
And that's a statistic.
Nationwide jet lag.
Yep.
Also, raise in heart attacks, etc. So,
So, hey, good job, everybody, for that daylight savings time.
So, Ron, make sure your Watchman is installed by then, eh?
On the 13th.
Oh, you're just going to miss it.
13th, yeah. I'm good.
Really like Brian Blake's comment there. Indian proverb, when DST was explained to him, only a white man would cut a foot off the top of a blanket, sew it on the bottom of the blanket, and think he has a longer blanket.
Dead on. That's accurate.
All right. Well, back to this. Thursday nights, 8 o'clock Eastern time. So that's, I guess, one more week of having it at the same time as we've been having it. So, it'll be at the normal time this coming week.
Not the next one.
In the Discord channel, Thursday night. So you can join up. You can hang out with us and chat. You can play games. We prefer you play the game of the week, or at least try the game of the week, but you don't have to, as you may notice a little bit back here.
I'm guessing that was Bob.
Nope. We've got Jim Rye playing Mud Pies.
Oh, wow. Okay. Usually it's Bob that breaks the mold.
Was Bob even there on that day? I can't remember.
Oh, maybe not.
Thursday.
I don't know. By the way, TG Bay Chris said this is his favorite episode of DST Nation ever.
I'm about ready to call asparagus on the time zones.
Well,
before I got caught up, I was going to call asparagus on it.
I'm done talking about the time zones. So what are you guys talking about? Jeez, would you guys quit?
Just set your alarm, Jason.
Enough of this talk about time zones, people. Be quiet.
All right, the motion is thirded. Move.
You also got to remember that the chat's about 30 seconds behind, so they haven't hit the asparagus point yet.
If you can't be there in the Game On Challenge on Discord, you can join us on YouTube or on Twitch and just chat with us in the comments. So, that being said, I will stop sharing this. And, just a second. Now, we will look at what next week's game is going to be. Anybody but Curtis.
You know, I recognize it. I can't remember the name of it, so I'm not going to be much help.
It's actually got a very close to the same name as the very similar game on the Apple II, which I played the heck out of when I was a kid.
You mean Sabotage or a different one?
A different one.
Okay. Well, Sabotage was a little bit similar to this in the Apple II, but that's going
to you're a tank that shoots down airplanes.
Yeah, with
the thing with the Apple II one is that you're just stationary in the center of the screen. You can actually move your tank by flipping your gun further all the way to one side, and your tank will move. Yeah.
Yeah, the Apple II Sabotage is the first one I ever played that, and that's like a 1979 or 1980 game. I'm sure Mark knows.
Well, the very first one that I played, just giving you a hint here, was Blitzkrieg on the Apple II.
I forgot. Yeah, you're in the lower left corner there, and you just angle your gun and shoot. Yeah, I did play that one too. The other Sabotage is in the middle.
And I think Blitzkrieg was also one of the early 70s ones, or late 70s.
Yeah, 79 was Blitzkrieg.
Yep.
That was the very first high-res game I ever played on a home computer. Before that was like Lemonade Stand.
That's one of those graphics.
So, this game is called Blitz.
Was this a magazine one too? I can't remember. I think it was, wasn't it?
You know, I'm not sure.
You seem to be doing a theme here, if it is.
I don't know. I just chose it because it looked interesting.
Your previous theme was bad games, and now you're doing magazine games, it looks like.
So yeah, we're gonna play this on level 3, by the way. Just it's
you get third time's a charm.
Yeah.
It's got a pause game, so I can take screenshots. I love that.
One of the interesting things about this game is that you can rapid fire. So if you just hold down the F key to fire, it rapid fires. But if you blow up a plane or anything, it causes an explosion that every time your bullets hit it, they explode as well, and it starts making a trail coming down towards your tank of explosions.
Oh, right. I forgot about that.
Which I don't think it can kill you, but it's a way to kind of make a kind of a section around
Scare
you.
ya?
That, yeah, it makes kind of a shield above you, so and bombs explode when they hit it, when the planes are dropping bombs on you. So.
And this is keyboard only, no joystick, correct?
Yeah, it's just left and right key and F to fire. So.
Cool. I seem to recall this was a pretty fun one.
Yeah, I mean, Blitzkrieg was one of my first Apple II games that I ever played, and I did
the old ones.
Play it for many
like I said, it was the first high res one I ever played. The only games on the Apple I'd played before that I think were Lemonade Stand I mentioned earlier, and then Escape, which is a low res where you meet the guys in hats. I can't remember what the heck it was called. And then Sabotage was a year later. That was more like this. It's you're in the middle and you angle your thing. And you also had the people running up to try to blow up your cannon.
Actually, I do remember that one too. They would like climb, climb on top of each other's shoulders. And once they got high enough, they could drop a grenade into your bunker.
Yep, correct. You do remember it exactly right.
Yep. All right, so that's that for that then. So it's going to be Blitz on level 3 for the next 2 weeks.
Cool. And for those who have problems, with joysticks and emulators and stuff like that, you won't need them for this. It's just keyboard.
Yep, keyboard.
So it should play absolutely fine on XRoar Online if it's already on the archive separate.
Woohoo! Yep, it is.
Well, except for me, I will probably rebind the hat buttons to the left and right, the arrow buttons, and then I'll just bind X and Y to who knows, maybe the space bar or whatever the other fire button is.
Nerd.
Make your environment work for you.
Cool. I don't remember if I was any good at the game, but I do remember it was fun.
Yeah, it's not a complicated game. It's just a little bit fun to play.
I thought
Like
you
a
couldn't
little
call,
bit.
You couldn't call somebody a nerd on a computer show.
Sure you can.
Oh,
How do you know I was?
There's different
talking to
levels
David
of
Ladd?
nerd, remember?
I just said nerd. I may not have been
I didn't
talking
say
to David Ladd.
Ladd. I just said, how can
there's
you
a
call someone?
whole panel there here that I might have been talking to. Maybe I was just mentioning all of us.
Plus, here, nerd is probably like a pleasant thing to call somebody an
Yeah, it's a badge of honor.
So, yeah, it's like saying captain.
Like calling the kettle black.
Geek. No, just kidding.
Nerd, geek. I mean, I've seen it like when I was in high school. I was fine with being a geek, but nerd was derogatory. Coming around to these days, like within the past 10 years, it seems like that's flipped on its head now. People who are into the various niche hobbies and whatnot will call each other nerds. I'm going
Isn't
to
it Dern?
I thought Revenge of the Nerds kind of solved that, the movie.
Wouldn't it be Dern?
Nah.
Such a politically correct movie to watch nowadays.
Yeah.
Yeah. But it did have a Coco in it, so.
Brian Blake.
Yeah.
True.
Brian Blake says, we're all nerds. Why else would we be here?
Exactly.
That's right. That's right. Yeah.
Right.
Nailed it. I mean, nerded it.
Nice.
Nerds with cats.
Cats gravitate towards nerds, I think.
That's because you rub them and then they get electrical.
No, it's because we spend so much time sitting in our house in front of our computers. The cats have a nice warm lap to sit in all the time, so they love you.
Yep.
And we don't socialize with other humans except at fests, so at least you have some companionship.
Can't point to it.
All right, so I guess since I am done with the Game On Challenge, is it time for the
commercial.
Snoozy Newsy? Or a commercial?
No, it's time for a commercial.
First a commercial.
Commercial break.
You can stay awake for another 2 minutes.
1 o'clock, we missed lunch.
All right, here we go.
Hey, Amy. Hey, Taylor. We're watching the CoCoNation show. Yeah, we are. Woo! You should too.
Hello everyone, it's your good buddy, your good pal Amigo, and joined by that dastardly The Brent from ARG Presents.
You're watching CoCoNation.
I feel like that should have been longer.
The CoCoNation show would like to thank the following patrons. AC's 8-Bit Zone, Alex Gare, Alan Huffman, Brendan Donahue, Brian Walsh, Brian Weasler, Kieran Anscombe, Coconut Bob, Daddy Burrito, David Ladd, Derek Smithson, Diego BF109, Don Barber, Eric Canales, Frederick Sigard, Glenn Hewlett, Graham Wabke, Grant Leedy, Henry Gernhardt, Henry Strickland, Jason Warrens, Jim Mullis, Jeffrey Drywater, Justin Larson, Ken Reichard, Patrick Euland, Paul Fiscarelli, Paul Shoemaker, R. Allen Murphy, Retro Tech Time, Richard Harding, Rob Inman, Rocky Hill, Steve Batson, TJB Chris, Tom C., Tom Gunderson, Tom S., and William Athing. Thank you so much, patrons. If you would like to support the CoCoNation show, sign up at patreon.thecoconation.com.
Welcome to everybody's favorite segment, Who's New to Discord?
Whiskey Sierra says, my name is Warren. Just returning to find more info and keep up with the news and developments around the MC10. Massive Robot says, hello, I'm Andy. I work most of my retro time on the Fujinet project. I'm into 6809 and OS9 and so looking to join up here. I have a Coco 3 but loaned it out to a friend to use for a while. L Jeff 2 says, howdy. My name is Jeff. I found the link in the Facebook group. Here to learn about different things for the Coco. I have a 64K extended Coco 2. Matt M says, hello, my first computer was a Coco and I ran OS9 level 1. Over the past few years I acquired a Coco 3, SDC, etc. Now I have been working on extending basic 09 subroutine module for Phoenix F256 computers. I'm a big OS9 fan. Redbeard number 001 says, thanks for accepting me, my name is Phil O from North Carolina. My first computer was a Coco 2 I got for Christmas around 1985 or 86, can't remember for sure. When I went into the military my parents gave it away. I picked up a Coco 2 on eBay around 95 or 96 and my collection has grown to about 6 Coco 2s and 4 Coco 3s. I'm working on building my workshop where I can organize and play with my collection. Byte Shift says, I started my computing journey in 1980 with a TRS-80 Model 3. I also had a couple of Cocos back then also, one was in a rack mount case. Now I have quite a few old machines, and enjoy rebuilding and modding them. I also love synthesizers and make music. You can check out my music at byteshift.bandcamp.com. Roger. The previous bios were edited for time. Thanks to Frederick Micro Hobbyist Sigard, Glenside Computer Club, Paul Fiscarelli, Paul Shoemaker, Tandy Color Computer 3, and the CoCoNation patrons for boosting the server. Please consider joining Discord and visiting the welcome section to read these bios in full and see what the community has to offer. Just go to discord.thecoconation.com.
See you on Discord.
When you want the latest in TRS-80, Tandy, Dragon, MC10, and all of their hardware cousins. No matter what it takes, or where news breaks, from around the world to your nation. The CoCoNation News with L Curtis Boyle.
Okay, first off, I'm going to go through upcoming shows because we actually have an addition to it near the end. So, first up, and this is actually just 3 weeks away, is the Interium Computer Festival at Intraspace in Seattle, Washington on March 21st to the 23rd. This is the Pacific Northwest show that is hoping to one day regain VCF status, which it was before the pandemic hit.
Yep.
And you're still going, Mark?
I'm still planning on it.
Cool. You think you'll be able to do a live?
We'll see. They do have localized internet and Wi-Fi, so probably is enough bandwidth to at least do it that way. So.
Okay. I mean, if not, if you just take some pictures and throw them up to us.
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
I will.
Okay, cool. Next up after that is VCF East. That is April 4th to the 6th at the InfoAge Science Museum in Walton, New Jersey, the same place it was last year. This is the one that has a whole bunch of special classes, etc., devoted to the Coco, programming in basic at different levels of advanced, intermediate, beginner, etc., some assembly. Any updates from there, Henry, as far as the
I actually wound up missing last week's meeting, so I don't have any updates, but it looks like when last we left our heroes, it looked like we were pretty good as far as getting everything set up for the final schedule, and yeah, it's on like Diddy Kong, man.
Cool. And there's some repeats there, so if you can only go one day, there's still a fairly good variety of stuff you can go in. If you're going to be there for multiple days and you want to spend a fair bit of time on the show floor, some of the classes are repeated, so you can watch them one day and then spend the time on the show floor the other day. So that works out
for
quite
all
well.
3 days. Hang out with me. I don't want to be lonely.
Next up after that is the next meeting of the Manitoba Retro Computer and Gaming Club meetup at the Fort Rouge Leisure Center in Winnipeg, Manitoba. This is the one I attended back in January, and they have them roughly 4 times a year. The next one is on April the 12th. This is like a 4-hour meeting, so it's a kind of a small thing. They do have a theme for each one. The upcoming one is for the Commodore 120, but there is a mixture of machines from all over the place. This is one that Bruce Moore and a few others David Craker have also attended as well because they live in the area. And we actually did some Coco stuff last time, so I'm sure they'll be bringing some Coco stuff there. Nice little, 20, 30, 40 people type thing. It's a nice little small event. You get to visit with absolutely everybody and share your love of retro. Next after that, of course, is the big one, Coco Fest, May 2nd to 3rd, with takedown on the morning of May 4th. So basically, this is moving a day earlier than normal. So this will hopefully get some people some time to take their flights and stuff back, because a lot of people are missing stuff on Sundays. And we've got the special rate at the hotel if you use the code G30, G30, and that will apply for May 2nd to 5th. So you want to stay an extra day or two to tour around Chicago or maybe visit some of the locals that are involved with the Coco, you can do that as well. And there's also the tandylist.com you can go to, which is showing the status of all the table sellings for the vendors, etc. And we've got 2 tables left in the main hall. And that's it at this point. And then there's actually some already being used up elsewhere in the spare room and plus, I think, the hallway. So, yeah, it's filling up quick. But definitely, if you're into the Coco at all, this is the show to go to. And that is in Schaumburg, Illinois. So it's kind of a little bit west of Chicago proper, at the Holiday Inn and Suites in Carroll Stream, Wheaton, Illinois. Next up after that is VCF Southwest in Texas. This is June 20th to the 22nd at the Davidson Gundai Alumni Center, University of Texas in Dallas. Tables and tickets, it's $20 per adult, $25 bought at the door for an adult, $10 for a student, $15 at the door. 17 and under are free with an accompanying adult. Tables are $50 a piece. This is one that Brendan Donahue, some other vendors, some other locals in Texas will be attending. Also, a lot of the Tandy people that worked at Tandy back in its heyday still live in the area, so a lot of them come out to the show too, including people like Mark Siegel, who's in our chat today. And if you want to actually meet some of the bigwigs at Tandy, and some of the engineers, etc., that actually created all the computers we know and love, this is a great show to go to. Next after that, what was formerly called Boat Fest now is called the International Retro Computer Show, mainly because a lot of people are coming around and going, where's the boats? And of course there are none, unless you count John Bodekar Schaller. So this is a bit later than it has been in previous years, July 11th to 13th in Hurricane, West Virginia. There's a promo video that I've played before on the show, but if you guys want to check it out, it's there. But they actually do have the tickets, so you can actually buy your tickets now in advance. And as with everything we talk about on the news, all the show notes are uploaded to the Coco Discord. It has links directly to all the sites for all these different shows, plus all the news items we have. So if you want to, grab this and actually go order tickets for it. It does say ticket price $10 to $40. I believe that's if you're a vendor, like with your own table, or if you're just an attendee. But there are tickets available now, and it's all set up, ready to go. And it's a lot of fun. I mean, Henry, you went to your first one last year. I think this is the fourth one now this year. You had fun at it, I'm pretty sure.
Oh no, I definitely had fun at it. And I'm not sure what the ticket prices are either, but I believe they've got differing ticket prices for how many days you're going to be there.
Oh, okay. It's more of that than whether you're having a table or just attending them.
Right.
And as I mentioned, food here, there's an awesome pizza place, just walking distance, like a block. And they've got a little bit of the schedule up here already. So actually they're doing setup already as of 6 p.m. on Thursday, and it running from Friday through Sunday. So it's 3 days. And Aaron, Boat, and Brent are always fun to hang around with. Next one after that is the biggest retro computer show that I'm aware of, and that's VCF Midwest. This is September 13th to 14th at the Schaumburg Convention Center in Schaumburg, Illinois, which actually is the same town that Rainbow Fest, sponsored by Rainbow Magazine, was from 83 till 91. This year's the 20th anniversary of the show, and there's a lot of collaboration between Coco Fest and VCF Midwest, including one of their head guys. Jason is actually our main auctioneer these days at the Coco Fest too. So, and of course there's the VCF warehouse, which is filled with old retro equipment, including Cocos and gimmicks, machines, and all kinds of stuff. It's just an awesome place to go visit, and you can arrange with Jason to actually take a bit of a tour through it. How many people on the panel are planning on going to this one this year? Out of curiosity.
I'll be there.
If I can't make it to VCF Midwest, then I'll be going to the one in Connecticut. I'm still kind of up in the air as to which one I'm going to go to anyway, but it depends on funding for me.
Okay.
Now, I'm planning on going like normal if, everything falls in line and, heaven forbid anything happens.
Yeah, there's usually a pretty good Coco contingent of these because there's still a lot of people in the Chicago area, the people that run at Glenside and stuff. So you guys had a whole area of tables for Coco people last year, which was awesome.
Yeah, they kind of poked us all together. That was pretty awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, and poor Ken had to put up with me.
There was a Coco section and a sea of mediocrity. No, I'm just kidding.
Right. That's exactly what it was.
There, the 8-bit wars started again. I just stopped it, though. Never mind. Next up after that, thanks to Henry for pointing this one out because I was not aware of it before. And it's the exact same weekend as VCF Midwest. So if you're closer to Connecticut than you are to Chicago, this might be a one that you can go to instead. This is Retro World Expo, and this is actually retro gaming, retro electronic game platforms. It's definitely gaming oriented. And it's also got like wrestling and stuff at it too. So it's a pretty wide variety of stuff going on there. But if you're into gaming, there's a ton of stuff to do here, from arcade cabinets to home computers to consoles to everything. Next after that is Tandy Assembly, which will be September 26th to the 28th at the Courtyard by Marriott Springfield downtown in Springfield, Ohio. This is a place they're starting to outgrow, so it may be moving in the next year or the year after type thing. But for this year, it's still at the same place it has been for multiple years in a row now. And this is, of course, one that is covers all the Tandy computers. So this covers like Pocket computers and Model 100 series and Tandy 1000s to 4000s and Cocos and Model 1234s and all the derivatives. So if you're into Tandy computers in general, this is the show to go to here because this will cover the entire gamut in one show. After that is the Portland Retro Gaming Expo from October 17th to 19th. And this is in Portland, Oregon at the Oregon Convention Center. And this is one that Tim and AJ, I think, are planning to attend this year. They've been there before as an exhibitor. I think they're only attending as guests this time. But it's kind of like the other one we're talking about in Connecticut. It's basically very gaming oriented, and it just has everything: consoles, arcade, electronic, handheld, home computers, the whole bit. So a lot of cool stuff there too as well. And we got a pretty good tour at the last time a few years back. And the new one, I don't know if Frederick knows too much about it, but there's the first VCF in Canada that I'm aware of that's officially sanctioned by VCF is VCF Montreal, which will be January 25th to 26th in 2026. I know Toronto's trying to get one organized too. I don't know how fast that's happening, but I don't have any much details on that. Like, they don't even list a place that it's being held at yet, just that it's in Montreal. Frederick, do you know anything further?
Yeah, just slightly. It's not necessarily not Montreal per se. It's just outside of it. It's in a military college that it's going to be held there. They are starting also to have some reservations for tables and stuff like that. So I already registered just in case. And yeah, but there's very little information for now.
Yeah, because the only thing I got here is the dates, and it says click here for a brief anonymous survey, which I'm not going to demonstrate on here. If you want to go fill that in, you can go get the link from the Discord notes. But so they've actually got some planning done further than what they're showing on the website.
They're really going to have that in January?
Yes. Only the hardy need apply.
Yes.
It's Montreal. It's Montreal. It's not going to be that bad.
Right.
Yeah, it's not going to be like minus 40 prairie weather, I don't think.
Right. No. Montreal's like,
and there's not going to be a meter of snow either.
Yeah, there might be two. No, I'm just kidding.
I mean, I've done Toronto in January and regretted it.
I think you didn't even need to add the January part to that, did
Yeah,
you?
you just regret going to Toronto.
Toronto, yeah. That's it.
Yeah, I do admit that January is quite a odd date, but then all the other VCFs are not on January, so...
Yeah. I guess they could have done late February where it might be springish weather, maybe?
No.
That's when the cold swings down.
Actually, it looks like May is empty except for Coco Fest, so if they did late May or something, that might work. You could suggest that to him, Frederick.
Yeah. I'll suggest.
Now, is like this, the military college that they're having it at, is there like the hotels and stuff nearby, or is it a bit of a jaunt?
Yeah. Oh, there's plenty of hotels in the area. I think that's why they chose it.
Oh, okay.
So,
because if they chose Montreal per se, it would have been quite expensive for the hotels.
Yeah.
So outside of Montreal, it's cheaper.
And Frederick, what was the name of the place that was being held at again?
I have to look it up. I don't remember. I just remember that it was a military college, and let me get back to you on that.
Okay.
So it's cool that we're finally getting our first official sanctioned VCF here. I know Franklin Harris has mentioned that they are trying to get a Toronto show organized as well. I don't know if they're going to kind of switch over to the World of Retro to be that, or if that's going to be a separate show on top of it, or how that's getting done. But it's in the earlier planning stages than VCF Montreal is, obviously, because this one is actually ready on the actual VCF website. So that's cool. That's what we got for upcoming shows.
Because my ski jacket's not up to that.
Well, for us Canadians, I will just go out in shorts and a t-shirt. So
yeah.
Hey, so vote from you guys on the panel. Do you want game news first, or do you want regular news first?
I always do game news first.
Gives me a little more time to sleep.
Ah, good point.
The regular news it is. No, I'm just kidding. Okay, B. So, first of all, Chronological Gaming actually ended up taking a week off, which I think 2 weeks ago, I think I'd announced that he was going to have a fair bit of Coco games on one episode on the following Monday, and I didn't know he was taking a week off, so my apologies. It came out a week later. He does have a newborn, so I'm pretty sure that might have something to do with it, a bit of a break to kind of recharge the batteries. Anyway, yeah, they covered a fair number of games here, and right now they're going through November of 1982. They finished all the ones that have official specific release dates. Now they're going alphabetically through everything else, and they're now getting up into the, I think as of yesterday, I think it's in the middle of the S's, so they're getting fairly close to the end where they might kick over to December. And there are some other pretty good Coco releases coming up, but some of the ones that they covered this past week. The first one is Nibbler, originally by Nelson Computer Systems, which is more famous probably for doing stuff like VIP Writer or Super Color Writer or the VIP Library, etc. They also did a bunch of utilities, etc. But they also had a game division, which eventually kind of split off and called Color Quest. And you'll see an ad here on the screen, kind of showing one of the earlier Color Quest ads with Beyond the Simian Moon, Nibbler and Miss Nibbler. Now, I do have a curious thing here. They released Nibbler and Miss Nibbler roughly at the same time. The manual for Miss Nibbler is on the Color Computer Archive, but the game itself is not. Does anybody on the panel or the chat have that particular game, and could they upload it to the archive if they do? The game itself is kind of a semi-weird version of Pac-Man, which you probably can tell by the title. That's what it's of. Ron Delvaux made kind of recognize this splash screen here if he's kicking around, because it's by the same company that licensed to Color Quest that his favorite Coco game of all time was written by.
Neutroid.
He's shaking his head. Smart man, that Ron. But yeah, Colorful Software also made Defense, which is a clone of the Atari 2600 version of Missile Command, which is, I think, is it the only game, Ron, you've ever participated on the Game On Challenge, or have you done one or two others? Oh, wait, he's muted. Got to wait for a sec here. Oh, that way to go. Yeah.
Look at how well done that is. Just looking at the name there.
You're really quiet.
Oh, I'm sorry. I said yes. That's my favorite game and my favorite company, Colorful Software. And I made I even made an intro artwork for it because I just love the game so much. It's fun. Keeps my interest. And then there really isn't anything else that I like all that much. I watch you guys, and the games that you guys like are pretty much what I like,
So I can't remember, Ken, have we played Nibbler on the Game On Challenge yet?
I don't know.
Is this the game you said you want to put back in the archive or whatever?
No, there's the accompanying Miss Nibbler, like kind of Miss Pac-Man.
Oh, okay.
That one, the manual's there, so obviously somebody had it, but the game itself's not, which is kind of odd. Now, for those of you who are on the audio and can't see this, I've got a screenshot of it. It's the standard Coco Dragon green background. This was sold in the UK as well. I think both of them were. There's only 3 ghosts. And one little quirk that's a little bit different is that when you eat the power pellet, the ghosts don't change color, you do. So the ghosts stay their yellow, blue, red, as you see on the screen here, but your Pac-Man changes, I think it's to red. And then by the color of your own player that you can eat the ghosts or not. So that takes a bit of getting used to, I have to say. Sound effects stuff are pretty minimal, but
that's cool. Everything else that you could play as far as Pac-Man style games or the best games you can play that are Pac-Man-ish right now would be...
I have to say Defense is a much better game than Nibbler.
Agree.
Next up, I covered a rather rare one, and this one I actually have to ask you guys about too. So this is Nova Pinball, published by Bumblebee Software. Now, first of all, if you notice this ad he's showing, it's a little bit later than from when Nova Pinball was released. Some of these games came out a little bit later. But we're missing all of these except for Nova Pinball and Cyborg Wars. I have not seen Pac-Mac, I've not seen Bug Zap, and I've not seen Derby. I've seen a clone of Derby by somebody else, but it's not the Bumblebee Software one. So if any of you guys out there in listening or viewing land have any of those games, please upload them to the archive. Because I've hunted and I cannot find them. The other thing is that Nova Pinball, I think, came out before Radio Ball by almost a year. It has some similarities in the general appearance of it, but he was having problems with the controls. And first I thought maybe it was the emulator, but then I tried a couple different emulators and I was having some weird issues where the right flipper doesn't go up, and it's keyboard driven, so that should be pretty easy. So I don't know if the actual copy on the archive is corrupt or not. I didn't get a chance this week to try it on real hardware, but if anybody does and lets me know if they are also having problems with some of the keys, because if it works fine on real hardware, then there's some emulator stuff that needs to get fixed. Other than that, it's a fairly simple video pinball. It's much better than the Tandy original pinball cartridge, so it does not let you design your own levels. Allows up to 4 players that can keep track of their scores.
Execute. And we're in. It's pin.
So one thing I'll mention, the plunger here, according to somebody hacked in some quick instructions based on the Rainbow review of the game, that you can actually hit the key for the plunger to go down multiple times. One of the emulators actually could get that to work. I could get several levels of the plunger. All the other emulators would only do 1 click and stop. So that's another thing that's a little bit odd. So I'm not sure what's going on there.
That reminds me of the MC10 game.
Lost Valley, you mean?
Yeah.
Oh, it was responding. What?
So there he was trying to hit the key to move the flipper, and I had the same issue on the emulators I was trying. Sometimes it would work, sometimes it wouldn't.
Whenever I use the keys. Poked it. Let's try it again. Right there. At this point, we played some incredible.
Actually, get some gameplay where it actually gets to hit something.
Yeah, this is not action pinball. This is. He started with doing. It does it for a second. Ready? Oh, it follows. Oh, okay.
Yeah. So I mean, you saw some brief gameplay there, but the game looks like it, physics-wise, etc. It's actually not too bad, but there's definitely some problems with the key controls. And I'm not sure if it's the emulator or if this copy is a little bit corrupt, because Rainbow did not mention any of that type of stuff. He's mentioning different plunger depths and, no problem with the paddles, etc. So that it seems to it worked at one time. So this might be one we might have to go through with the Mame debugger and figure out what's going on. Either there's an emulator fix, or maybe this is actually corrupt and needs patched to run properly. That might have been copy protecting somebody when they, uncopy protected it, mucked something up. We've hit, other games like Bugs that had that problem. So,
Curtis, has this guy done other computers, or is
he does all? He does retro arcade games, computers, home game consoles, handheld electronic, little desktop things. Covers them all.
I just wonder, if we were to interview him, what he would compare.
We did.
We did?
Yeah. A couple years back.
He's gone quite a bit further now in Coco stuff, and I just wondered what his opinion would be compared to some of the other machines. It's about.
Oh, he tells you that in literally every episode. He compares, because the way he does his review ratings for these, he reviews any handheld or tabletop electronic ones, like you remember the old Galaxy and stuff that was all LEDs.
Yeah.
He reviews those as a group, and you compare between those. If you're doing home console, like Atari 2600s and Intellivisions and ColecoVisions and Channel Fs and all that, he compares that entire group together, so home consoles, and then home computers is another one. He compares them all. So he's compared Donkey King to, I can't remember what some of the other ones say, the official Donkey Kong from Atari on an Atari 800 or something like that. So he does compare everything together. So if you have clones or games that are very similar, or even, games that were released on multiple platforms, like some of the Adventure National stuff, he will compare, literally between them, which one he thinks. Like for currently, out of all the games we played through November of 1982, Donkey King is still what he considers the best Donkey Kong on anything.
Oh, really? He
console-wise.
has an opinion like that. That's pretty cool. After
Yeah,
a while, we're on the Coco all the time, and some of us don't see other machines. I don't think I've ever played on a Commodore or a Apple ever, nor do I even feel like I need to. But, I don't know what I'm missing, I guess. So, with somebody else comes on and they talk about, doing our stuff, and they've done other stuff, I just wonder if they're holding their nose as they go through the rest of the games that they have to play, because it seems like a lot of the games that I ever got on my collection of software or whatever is, pretty dumbed down games that, had no sound and were
he's pretty honest about it. We've gone through some Coco games, and I helped do some of the research for him on the Coco side. He's got a few other people to help with some of the other platforms because they're really familiar with it too. And plus, he found my game site, so that's kind of how we linked up. But he's pretty honest. Like he'll tell you when a Coco clone of something really sucks.
Good.
In fact, I think some of these, like this one here, he gave an absolutely horrid review because the controls don't work properly.
Yeah.
Now, is that an emulator issue versus, a cracked copy that didn't quite work properly issue, or was the game flawed when it was sold? Now, judging by the reviews I've seen, because it was reviewed in, I think, Color Computer Magazine and Rainbow, and neither of them said anything about these problems we're hitting. So to me, that tells me either every emulator's got a problem because they programmed the PIA weird or something, or the version we all have now is corrupt. and isn't running the way it's supposed to.
Is that what is that called? Bit rot or something, or is what?
I think some people call it that, but that's not really what it is.
It's not a thing.
Yeah, bit rot is normally like when a disk starts losing its magnetics and starts to corrupt the data type thing.
More so on a hard drive.
Yeah, I guess it could be on the hard drive too, but
I think what Ron's referring to is code rot, where nobody's worked on this forever, and then they're just going to try to jump in and change one little thing, and they break 12 other things. Because
most time I've seen it go like that on the Coco. It's been somebody's been stripping copy protection, and they buggered something up when they
have no idea what they're doing, and they
then you wind up getting that copy in a collection, and you're thinking,
yep. And you play it. Here? You know, he tried it for the first level because he's a cracker. He's not a game player. He plays the first level and goes, "Yeah, it seems to work." And the guy gets second level, and the game freezes or something like that.
Right.
Anyway, anybody in the chat or anybody on the panel, if you guys get a chance to try this on real hardware, it's just Coco 1, 2, or 3, 32K RAM required. If it gives you the weird controls thing. There is a little instruction sheet that somebody did put up in the archive. Plus, if you read the Rainbow review of it, it does tell you what the keys are for putting coins. It does have one cool thing. If you look on the lower left here, this little black square where my mouse is hovering. Hopefully you can see the mouse.
Yeah.
That's the coin slot. When you actually hit the key to put coins, it actually slides these little coins into the slot.
Oh, jeez.
So the programmer did go through some detail here, and the physics look pretty good and stuff too. So I suspect it's a bad copy. We've all got it, and the one in the archive is part of that too. So one thing I'm gonna have to try. I did have this game way back before the Color Computer Archive and stuff, and if I still have it on disc somewhere, I might have to try that to see if my copy's different than the one in the archive, and maybe mine works. I don't know, because I don't remember having this problem back in the day either. The mind you, I played Pinball Factory a lot more than I played Nova Pinball or Radio Ball for that matter. Next up, this is one that you guys should recognize pretty quickly here because we just had it on the Game On Challenge a few weeks ago. Correct, Ken? I keep getting Ken when he's snoozing. I mean, walking away.
What? Who? What? Where? When? Why? Yes. Well, this one just ended last week.
At least they have some art for it, right?
Yeah, I think this was actually the dragon art, if I remember. I don't remember seeing this. This is actually fairly more professional. If anybody remembers the first ads for this in Rainbow in '82, I think Charles just drew stuff by hand and submitted a full page ad that way. So it looks literally like it's drawn by a 12-year-old or something. It was pretty funny. The game itself, as we covered, is actually quite fun once you kind of get used to it. And then there's also this version here too, which is probably a drag one, or somebody made it up on their own. I don't remember ever seeing that one before. Any of the people in the audience, especially in the chat, that are from the UK or Europe, if you guys ever had the original Pack Droids by the Programmers Guild, which I do know the Programmers Guild actually created a special UK office to sell stuff for the Dragon in the UK, and actually had a few games that we didn't get in North America. So maybe this was something that they brought out there, and I just never saw it back in the day. But he this one he quite liked because there's so many Pac-Man clones. I think he mentions like this is our 89th Pac-Man derivative on the show type thing, across all the computers and stuff here. But this had enough originality to it where you can have smart bombs and they drop mines, and there's a certain ship you can never kill off unless you use one of your smart bombs. Other ones you can kind of change the color, and you have like the bar meter that tells you how much time you got left. So there's a lot of difference here between a regular Pac-Man game and this. So it's original enough. It was more entertaining than the 85th clone of Pac-Man. Next one he came up after that, and this is all in the same show from last Monday, is Planet Invasion. And that's my Spectral Associates, and you'll also notice Ron's favorite defense here. That's what the original cover artwork for the North American market.
Yeah, I don't think I ever saw that. Huh.
And that's of course, Defender clone, and I think, Ken, we have played this one back in the day.
Galax Attack and Space War. All right, I'm excited. But it's so smooth. I actually feel like I have good control over the ship.
Yeah, I think we did too.
Another enemy type already. Nice. Coming after us.
This one was kind of a mixed bag for me. It actually plays pretty good. It's as you go through the levels, you get the extra ships, different ones that start showing up. So it's pretty good clone of Defender.
I don't think we can. Look,
the only things I had kind of a little bit of a beef was the shapes are quite small, especially like your ship.
destroy all
compared to what
the
I would be used to. And the mountains are only done with
like you
dotted
could in the
lines. So mind you, I think that was to
Uh-oh,
keep the
we got
speed up
mutoids
rather
already
than
starting
trying to
show
draw
up.
full blown
Let's go and
lines
pick their
everything.
mutoids. We don't have the paperwork
Because that would have
of
flickered, I
the
think, a
lore
fair
or
bit,
story
unless
of
you did double buffering. And if I remember, Plan Invasion was specifically written to run in
this game.
16K, so I
Planet
don't think it is double
Invasion, what
buffering.
is the... I'm just
But
gonna call
otherwise,
them
it's a
the
pretty
same
complete defender. They do pick
types
up the
that we saw
humans.
in
The humans,
Defender.
if they fall to the ground from a certain height, will survive on their own. Otherwise, they die. You can capture them in space, though, because the human's very, very small and you're very small. It's actually probably more difficult than the arcade.
A fender on the TRS-80.
Well, if you're slow like me and you go and look at that screen on
look at all
top,
this
by
we
the
have on
time you
screen.
look down,
So
you're
many
screwed up
mutoids coming
somehow.
at us.
Yeah. The Death Star instead of radar.
It feels refined. Like I'm
It's
actually
a distraction.
in some of the best control for a shooter up to this point.
And this
or
is
at
one
least
thing he
a
pointed out in
defender
this, which I wanted to
on
point out
the
too, because
TRS-80
this is something
computer.
was
It just
fairly
feels
unique to the
really good
Coco, was that
fly
this actually used the
and shoot
analog
and move
joysticks
around.
as analog. So instead of just a hard left and hard right where you'd build up
This
your
feels
thrust,
so good as a control
you
because it
actually
makes
have a
me
bit of
take back what I
analog
said
variability
when I
as to how
said,
fast
when
you're going
do
up,
the
down, left, right.
emulation, wow, that came in
So
fast. For
it
some of the
needs an
games we played
analog
on the Coco,
joystick
I
to
was like,
play
oh, maybe the
fully properly
emulation's,
as the original author
messed up,
intended
or
it. This
something
is
went
not
wrong
one
with
you can use a
the-
digital stick. It does work,
the
but
way
you have
that
less control.
It was for us to play, but no, this game proves no. It
So that was one he quite liked. Just to give you an example, Ron, that one he compared quite favorably compared to other defenders clones that have been out. Okay, next up after that, Buzzsaw Gaming on YouTube did a tour of his 2025 game room, which includes many consoles, old PCs. Near the end, he actually shows off his Coco 3 system. We've covered a couple of his videos recently, and he's actually got a couple of original, like the original discs and everything else, because he's actually got a system with dual floppy drives, real floppies, no Coco SDC at this point. I'm going to play it a little bit earlier, because if you remember the previous video we did when he played Contras, which is one of the ones he's got the original discs for, we got introduced to his lizard wearing a cowboy hat, and you get to see the lizard on the way over to the Coco, so I thought that'd be kind of cool.
Mr. Buzzsaw's couch, Mr. Buzzsaw's house. We got my color computer right here. I absolutely love my color computer. It's got dual floppies. It's got a mouse, deluxe joystick. It's maxed out, fully upgraded to 512K, which is half a megabyte of RAM. I've got this beautiful monitor that matches exactly. It was specifically made for the Color Computer 3.
It's got a
With a door yet, the lucky bugger.
CM8, I believe it's called. Dual floppy drive right there. Cassette
Actually,
recorder.
that stand is
You could hear that great music.
rare, isn't it now?
Yep.
Yeah. Got this little manuals and stuff down here. Got a couple games on floppy right there. Contra, Sub Battle Simulator. Bunch of the manuals right there. I'm reading through, relearning basic. If you guys don't know, the Color Computer 2 was my first gaming console, first computer ever. My original one is still lost somewhere in my parents' house in their garage. They're pack rats. So I picked up this Color Computer 3, which is backwards compatible with Color Computer 2 and one game. So absolutely perfect. I love it. Such a cool setup. I didn't know I would do this, but I'm so happy I did.
Anyway, just to give you a kind of a look what else he's got here. Let me find one of his. He's here. He's got like a 40 megahertz, Windows machine, and he's got shelves full of original games and original productivity software as well, like Lotus 1, 2, 3, and WordPerfect and QuickBooks, etc. Just he's very much into retro on everything, but the Coco was actually a first love of his, so that was kind of cool.
Oh, nice.
Next up, Pierre Sarrazin's been quite busy this past week here, and there's some bunch of downloading you guys are going to have to do. So the first one here that he posted both of these on the World of Dragon forums, and I think he also posted about these on Facebook, but he's ported the 11 text graphic adventure games originally by Channel 8 Software. Now, these were graphical adventure games for the Dragon 64 and Dragon 32, I think, or maybe just the Dragon 64, I can't remember, but they were basically meant for cassette only. So they loaded off cassette. They would not run a disk system because of the same reason you had to have a memory increase on a Coco to do the same thing, because the disk system takes some RAM away from you. And these games kind of filled up the RAM. So he's gone through and patched these now in a couple different ways. He's also patched them now to run on the Coco. So first of all, we get these games now for the first time. And Channel 8 actually made 11 different text adventure games. I'll just name them off here. There's Golden Baton, Arrow of Death Part 1, Arrow of Death Part 2, Escape from Pulsar 7, Feasibility Experiment, The Time Machine, Circus, The Wizard of Icarus, Perseus and Andromeda, 10 Little Indians, and Waxworks. And you can see some screenshots here. So here's one with just the plain text mode, and then you can actually hit a key to switch to the graphics mode to see it. Now, he hasn't ported the graphics part over to the Coco yet, but he has changed these so they can run on disk. And if you have a Dragon 32, you can only run the text version because basically the adventure game itself takes the full 32K. So you just be playing a standard text adventure game, basically. If you have a Dragon 64, though, he's got this little preloader, and you can actually run this with the graphics mode on the Dragon 64 from a disk system now. It doesn't have to run a cassette. Now, he didn't rewrite the routines for saving a game in progress and reloading as a game in progress, so that still goes to tape. But you can actually play these. Like these would have crashed before. And then he also created the Coco versions of these using the text mode as well. So that should run, so you can actually play these games. And from what I've heard, these are actually pretty decent adventure games from back at this time period. And obviously, this was a company that specialized in them to come up with 11. I mean, that's almost as many as the Scott Adams series was. But those are both available if you go to the World of Dragon forums. Go to the upload section, and you can actually download this entire, what he's calling the Channel 8 Software Adventure Pack. And it gives you all 11 games. And you can get the Dragon versions or the Coco versions there. And give them a try. And then he went back, and he's ported these before. I think we covered it a few years back. He's ported the Scott Adams games, which were also originally written for cassette-only systems, and he's ported those now to run on a Coco or Dragon from disk without crashing. But he's added a new one to the list here, Quest Probe 1, The Hulk. Now, Quest Probe was kind of a Marvel superheroes crossover, and they had a few games that kind of fit that mold. The Coco only got, as far as I know, the Hulk one, the first one. And we do have a copy of that on the archive I've seen before. I actually have an original tape here, which actually has a splash screen that's not on the archive version. So I'll have to see if I can digitize that at CocoFest or something to send up to the archive so we can insert that in because that had a nice little loading screen. But he's ported that one now too. So now we've got the original 13 text adventures by the standard Scott Adams ones, plus the first Quest Probe one, all converted to run from disk on the Dragon or the Coco. And these are a little bit patched by him in that if you have a Coco 2B or a Coco 3 or one of the emulators, it actually supports the T1 VDG chip with true lowercase. In fact, it'll prompt you at the beginning when you fire it up. And you can, if you have that chip, you hit yes, and now all of a sudden it's proper lowercase for the entire game instead of just uppercase. And he's got a zip file that contains all 13 of the original adventures, plus now the 14th Quest Probe, the Hulk. Next up after that, so Jim Jewett, who has been kind of digging through his old discs there and finding, games that he worked back in the 80s as a kid, et cetera, and he's been, re-uploading them if they were fairly complete. And some others he's been kind of going in because they were unfinished and kind of, tidying them up and adding to them. He's done that with a Space War. Now, we covered a Space War game before, and he actually had some screenshots previously, which I didn't bother bringing up in this case here because we just covered it a few weeks back. But he said he's updated the game a bit itself, and he's also updated the instruction manual, which you can download from the Coco group on Facebook. And he mentions here, the improvements include a new twist to the mission. During the battle, Central Command detects an unknown vessel stranded in the quadrant, although it does not appear on the quadrant map, so it's up to you to use your sensors and expertise to locate the vessel and rescue the crew before the enemy destroys them. And he's also made some improvements to the quadrant map and also included some additional dialogue just to mix things up a bit. Enjoy. So if you're into that type of a game, he's got a new update out, a new updated manual to go with it. And you can download it for free at the Facebook Coco group. Next up, we have NMI Non-Maskable Interrupt. He's got a real Coco 3 with a real CM8, and he's been doing a bunch of videos of a mixture of Coco 1, 2, and 3 games. The one he decided to cover this week for about 1 minute of gameplay is Sea Dragon, sold by Adventure International. Now, because he's running on a CM8, and Sea Dragon is one of those ones that uses P Mode 4 with, full detail P Mode 4. You can do the, change the color set and force it to P Mode 3, but it actually makes it look pretty horrible on the CM8 because it's not designed to use every 2 bits as a pixel. It's designed to use every single bit as a pixel with some artifacting thrown in for extra measure. So it becomes quite an unreadable mess on the screen if you try to run it with the patch, like RGB Patch by Spectral as an example. So he's playing in pure black and white, but it plays okay on that. I'm sure you guys have seen this before. It's got, one of the earlier Coco games actually has speech in software. It's also got multi-voice music. The skill levels is actually how fast the game runs. He's playing on a pretty low skill level here, so it runs fairly slow on the scrolling. That's not, the Coco can't keep up. If you try playing at a level 7, it's much faster than this. I'll play just a few seconds of it. Even on black and white, it doesn't look that bad. I mean, it doesn't really screw up the game in any way. I mean, I've tried some of the other Sea Dragon games, and I think, is this one of the ones, Ken, that you did a cross-platform compare video on? I can't remember if this is. Yeah, I think it was too. The Coco version actually ends up being one of the better ones, honestly. Play-wise, like the Atari one is, the Atari 8-bit one is so slow. I mean, it's got nice music and it's got nice sound effects, but it's pathetically slow. The Apple version talks too, and it's got some extra things like this weird snake thing at the end. I prefer the nuclear reactor one that the Coco has. So, but it was one of my favorite games back then. I got so used to playing on level 7 on keyboard. That's what I still do to this day, as long as I have a Coco 1-2 layout keyboard with the arrows on opposite sides. Because if you play the diamond one, it's impossible. Next up, we have Erico Monteiro, who's, of course, been doing a lot of programming with UG Basic, Microgames Basic. And he's decided to enter the 10-liner contest as well. He's going to do a full game using the basic compiler. And he's in the Extreme 2-6 category, which means you're filling the line right up, 256 characters type thing. And this is the, he did a couple updates during the week. This is the latest one he just released, I think, this morning or late last night, which is, he's written an entire little game that runs on Microgames Basic in 10 lines of code. And of course, since it's a compiler, you have slightly better sound effects than you would normally in regular Basic. And it's also, of course, much faster handling the keyboard. That's pretty good animations for like a really low-risk game. Now he's got one problem. He put all this stuff in. He's got the game fully up and running. Now he's got just over 11 lines of basic code, so it's too big to enter the contest. So now he's looking how to shrink it back down. I think he said 1.1 lines is what he has to do to get it to qualify for the 10-liner contest. But I'll play it here. You can see a couple of different screens here. It's just barely over a minute. I'll play the whole thing. And it's called 5 Tides at Purple Oyster Beach, which is one of the weirdest names for a game I've ever heard. The game itself looks like a lot of fun. Basically, you've got these islands and high tides coming in. You have to go collect these little purple squares by crawling and jumping between hills and mountains, etc. here before the tide rises up and kills you or sucks down some of the purple treasures you're trying to get. Oh, the other thing is you have to get to the highest point of the ground here so you don't get sucked into the water when the tide comes up too. So you have to not only get all the treasures, you have to make it back to the top of the screen to avoid drowning.
Not a bad game idea.
No, and it like he's really good at using this low res, like just shrinking the black square your player like by half when you land to do that little kind of springy jump. Looks awesome. And it's so simple.
Is this on the Coco?
Yes.
Okay, so it looks MC10 could do it, couldn't it?
Yeah, unfortunately, I don't think the compiler does 6803 MC10 code yet.
Well.
Because this is definitely running faster than regular, extended basic would, or even color basic would be able to do at this point.
Except that MC10 is faster anyway, right?
10% maybe, not this amount.
Okay.
So, anyway, he's got some sample levels, but like you said, now it's a tiny bit too big to enter the contest, so he's got to figure out how to shrink it down before the contest deadline.
Now, when they say 11 lines, that's 11 lines of what, 256K?
256 characters.
Right. Yeah.
They have different levels in the contest. You have ones that have to be 80 characters or less. I think 128 characters or less, and then 2 to 6. And it has to be pure basic code, no machine language subroutines, no loading in a massive set of libraries and stuff here to do fancy stuff so you can kind of cheat. So it's run out of Germany. We covered it on the show about a month ago, I think. And I know Jim Gary's already submitted some stuff to it too. We've covered before as well, and there's some others that have entered it well. There's actually quite a bit of entries this year so far, from what I saw. I haven't checked the last week or two here, but I think it was already up over 50, 60 entries on various 8-bit platforms back a few weeks ago. So I'm imagining it's a fair bit higher now.
You know, it's interesting. On one computer monitor, it's a blue area, and then the other one's the purple.
Yeah, well, the problem with the Coco is that, you know, with RF out, I mean, everybody had their TV tint and color adjusted a bit differently. So one person's orange was one person's red, or magenta became dark royal purple, and, you know, it's still in place. Next up, Retro Game Diaries did a RoboCop Battle of the Games. So basically, he played the arcade original RoboCop, and then he went through and played 12 different platforms, versions of it. And he does a bit more lengthy gameplay earlier in the video, and then the tail end of the video is basically his ranking them as to what he figured is the best to the, or worst to the best. So out of the 12, we'll mention right now, with the Apple II version, which we see on the screen at the moment, was 11th, and the Coco 3 version came out as 10th. And honestly, I think his critique of it is fairly decent. There's a lot more animation on a lot of the other ones, like the walking animation of your RoboCop, for example. And the Coco one only basically has 2 frames. So it's pretty choppy looking. The other ones generally tend to have like 4 to 8 or something like that. The background music, which I mean, for the Coco, you know, having background music was kind of neat at the time. But it's very simple, low-pitched, single voice. Like it's not what I would call an outstanding game. It's actually fun, and there's a fair bit of level. Like there's a lot of stuff to go through, so that way it was good. And I have to remember, it's a cartridge. Now, it was a super cartridge with 128K ROM, I think, but a good chunk of that was taken up with a digitized voice for, you know, the word RoboCop, etc. But he ranked at 10th out of 12. But I'll play. You'll see the tail end of the Apple II version here, and then you'll see the Coco part.
At number 10, it's the TRS-80 Color Computer 3. Similar to the NES version, but with notable fewer frame rates while he's walking. In fact, it's only 2 frame rates. And also, the music is poor, rather depressing.
Plus, he's getting this weird clicking in the background. I think that's just the emulator is running, because the original does not do that.
Next up is the MSX. And the MSX version is really a clone of...
Anyway, if you want to see the full review of all 12 ranked from worst to best as to which ones did the best job on the 8-bit system.
What was the best one?
I don't remember, but I do know one of the official versions for the C64 was the worst. And it's not because it looks bad or, you know, has terrible graphics or sound. It has great graphics and sound, actually. But it was so rushed out, the game actually has huge bugs. It will actually crash completely while you're playing it. You can never complete the game. And it was released that way as a commercial product. So that's why it got a dead last. First place. That's the arcade version, I think. Looks like the Game Boy.
And at number 2, well, that goes to the Game Boy version. For me, And at number 1, well, I suppose there's no surprises, and perhaps a little bit unfair. And this goes to the arcade version, which is the blueprint for all the other games that follow. I have such...
Yeah, that's a bit unfair, I would agree.
Yeah.
So Game Boy basically out of the ports. And then we got another kind of a comparison video, but a little bit different. So this is Voodoo Castle speedrun, all platforms. Voodoo Castle is a text adventure game written by Adventure International, Scott Adams. I don't normally see speedrun comparisons between platforms playing a text adventure game, but here we go. And he compared it on a couple different platforms here. You'll see VIC-20, Commodore 64, the BBC Micro, Acorn Electron, Dragon 3264, which is also the Coco version. Apple II. Now, he had this label, the TRS-80 Coco. I've actually sent him a note, and he's going to correct it, but it's basically the Model 3, Model 1 version instead. And the Atari 800 ZX Spectrum. And basically, it's how fast can you type and get through the entire adventure and win. I didn't even know speed running text adventures was a thing. Least number of moves, maybe, but not speed run.
We're playing the Dragon 32 version. Let's rock.
And actually, he's looking like he's running Pairs modified one with lowercase, which he didn't enable because I guess his emulator wasn't set for it. Now, how would you do a fair speed run if you're playing on an emulator? I mean, part of the issue of running some of these other machines, like say a Spectrum, would be the keyboard. When you got this kind of gelatinous, springy type of keyboard, or say a Coco Chiclet versus a Dragon 32 keyboard, that would definitely affect your typing speed. So I'm not sure how fair this is doing it on an emulator with, the same keyboard for everything. But I thought it was just interesting seeing a speed run of text adventures. I've never heard of that before. Next up, we got a couple of play videos here by a Polish YouTube channel called Greg OK 1973. I think we did cover him a couple months ago. We did another Coco one. And he basically did two this past week. He did 3D Maze by Scott Bain, 1982. I'm pretty sure this was a magazine game. It might have been a tape magazine, actually. And there's two versions of the game inside of it, which actually makes a pretty big difference as to how the gameplay is. So I'll fast forward just a little bit. So you got, standard keys, arrow keys to move yourself forward or turn left or right, or turn around. The C key to change screens between the map and the 3D look. There's an easy timer with simple screen. This is basically just doing wireframe and kind of cheating to make it as fast as possible, because this is just basic. And then he has a hard timer with complete screen. This actually does painting in the backgrounds and stuff, so it's quite a bit slower play-wise. So I'll play a little bit of the wireframe one.
W każdym razie tak to wygląda. No I dobrze.
And here you can see where it's kind of cheating because it's kind of drawing extra lines that shouldn't be there, really.
I chodzę po tym labiryncie, oczywiście.
And basically it's just standard, wander around till you find the escape hole in the floor, and then you win. And here you can see it's coming up. And it's still not super quick, but it's playable as a little 3D game. It even gives you a little text map version of your route that you took.
I tutaj pokazuje nam miejsca.
We go to the full painted in version, which looks a lot better. It is a lot slower.
Ten labirynt jest znacznie bardziej wymagający.
And this is with the speed up poke enabled, I should mention.
Wybieram kierunek w lewo teraz, więc on wtedy to oznacza, że wybrałem kierunek. Natomiast muszę chwilę poczekać, aż on.
Man, am I glad YouTube's got translate, because I wouldn't have a clue what he's saying.
Is he Russian or something?
No
Polish.
tak niestety to wygląda, że tutaj jest to dosyć.
We can see, like, you hear the beep when you click the key, and then it takes that long, several seconds to redraw the screen every time. Other than that, it looks okay. And I think this was another one that was or is it the same one as I mentioned before? It's a magazine-style game. I think it was on Chromaset or T&D, I think. I haven't had a chance to check to see if it was actually on a print magazine or not. The other one we covered here is called 64 Witches. We've got a version of this, I think, in EOU by the guy that wrote the GUI B library, Sean Driscoll, which he called something slightly different. But basically, it's the classic. You have the 64 squares of a chessboard, and you have to place 8 queens so they can't hit each other, given all the legal moves the queen can do. And there's a few solutions to how to get that done, and basically you have to try to figure that out. Now, if you see on the bottom here, it says copyright 1983 by Richard Ramella. Now, Richard Ramella was a columnist for several Coco magazines at different times. I think he might have done some stuff with 80 Micro. And then when Hot Coco launched, he actually had a regular column in Hot Coco, I should say, for years. And then when Hot Coco folded, he actually went over to Rainbow and then continued his Ramella's Arcade. I can't remember what he called the column off the top of my head. But he kept publishing in Rainbow, so he kept the column going, even though the original magazine it was in disappeared. And so this is more of like a strategy. I'm not sure I would really call it a game. It's almost like a puzzle solve, but I mean, you try to go through and it'll tell you like, no, that this one can kill this one because you've got a diagonal or horizontal vertical move, and your object is to get the 8 placed in such a way that they can't hit each other. Next up after that is Brew Otaku. I don't know if they're related to Paco Otakte, alias David Ladd. But apparently they're publishing a magazine of this name, and this is published in Germany. And you can order a print version, which you pay for, and then you've got to pay for digital download, which is a fair bit cheaper. But they decided just to kind of get the word out there. They took their first issue from spring of 2024 and have made it a free download on their website. And they posted this to the Coco group on Facebook. I've got links to it here. But the one thing I like about it, one, it's very professionally done, but two, it's the gaming magazine for new games on old systems. So this is for new releases on retro computers, not going through the old library, but all the new stuff. So like some of Nick's stuff should qualify. Now, he did mention when he posted it here on the Coco group that he hasn't seen too many, game updates, but I don't know how many people have told him that there've been new game updates. We've got Paul Shoemaker, Nick Morenis, Paul Fiscarelli, Paul Thayer, have all, we've got Wayne Campbell, who's in the chat, who did his new Sokoban. Freud Resler's working on GemQuest 2. So we do have new games coming out. So I think we should probably start trying to hit them up a little bit and send them some, stuff to try out type thing. And the magazine is divided into sections where you have just basically almost like a press release. Like, here's this game. It's for this platform. Here's a screenshot, brief description. And they go through like dozens and dozens of those. And then they also usually have close to 2 dozen more full reviews of some of these newer games coming out. So I'm going to show you a little bit of the actual magazine here. So this is like a cover, and this is the January, February 24th. They've got 4 issues published right now. They're working on the 5th. And you can actually, did I download it locally? I don't think I did. Did I? Okay, I'll have to load it here. So they made this first issue free, and I don't think there's any Coco or Dragon stuff in this one from what I remember. There's even, you can get ads for like new games getting released on these new platforms. You can also, get ads for joysticks, etc. So what they call the news corner here is basically what new games have been released and a very brief description and a link directly to go find where you can either purchase it or download it for free, depending on how it was released. So Nick, I think you should probably submit some of your stuff as it gets released too here, so they can, keep up on Coco stuff. And that goes for everybody else running games on the Coco. Like here's an Amstrad CPC one, there's a Commodore 64 one, Spectrum 48K, the Amiga, Atari VCS, and there's like dozens and dozens of these things here. Another ad. And even the ads are interesting because these are, retro computers getting brand new games. Some are clones, some are originals. And then if you go down further, yawn, snore. Let me just jump way ahead here. Then you get the actual more full reviews of some of the games, where they've actually taken the time to play them for a fair bit of time. Wasn't running this slow earlier today. Yeah, with an actual rating here, for example, on this one. So they give you a full page one, and this is a freeware game by Casper Crows for the MSX2 called Phoenix Corrupta. And they got some multiple screenshots here, and they do a bit more in-depth review, conclusion, and an actual score, plus a QR code you can scan to directly link to where to get the game, which I think is a pretty good idea. And this is actually a fascinating idea for me, that you're basically covering all retro platforms with new software. I don't think that's really been done before. We've seen some other retro gaming magazines that have covered, old stuff from back in the day, as well as some new releases and stuff. But this is totally dedicated to new releases on retro platforms. And I think the Coco should get some, mention in these. So I think if anybody's writing games for the Coco, once you get them done, don't forget to send them a link to your page, even if it's commercial, so they can at least check it out. They might request you for a, a version to review fully. But I think it'd be worth, spreading that there is Dragon and Coco game development still happening, and active, fairly active, with multiple people involved. Next about that, we got an update from Paul Shoemaker. And you may recall last week we showed his MC-10 version of Star Trek, which is based on the old classic mainframe Star Trek, but enhanced with graphics, using the highest res graphics mode pixel-wise that the MC-10 supports out of the box. You can get more than that if you put an 8K RAM upgrade inside the MC-10 itself. Then you can start using P Mode 4 and 3. But this is basically the equivalent of P Mode 2, so 128 by 192, 2-color. And last time he was using, I think, Simon's multi-voice music routine. You got to remember the MC-10 only has 1-bit sound, not 6-bit like the Coco does. Using the original TV series theme music, and he decided he preferred using the one from the Next Generation, which is actually, I think, from Star Trek 2, if I remember correctly. The movie is actually where it first appeared, and then they kind of adapted it for the Next Gen. But he also actually shows a bit more of the actual gameplay and also how the menu selection is going to work on it. So I thought I would play that here.
He's quite an artist.
So the animation here, the stars twinkling and stuff he showed us on the previous video from last week. But once he gets the actual gameplay here shortly, you'll definitely see some changes and updates. This is one he should admit to that magazine review that he's done, actually. Because I'll cover the Matra Alice, too. Nice Enterprise. You kind of missed this last week, Ron, I think. But here you see, as you move through the controls here, you got the little 3-character, abbreviation. But then as under command, it actually prints out the full name of the command. So it's kind of got built-in help without having to have a separate help screen. And he does mention a few things here, like when he was moving his ship. I don't know if you guys caught that or not, but let's see if I can find that again. It actually jumps the ship immediately up to where you're going to. And he wants to change that so you actually see it move, across the squares to get there. Because here he selects where he wants to go and then just blink. So he wants to animate that a little bit. But yeah, it's coming along pretty good, actually. And of course, I'm sure he'll add sound effects, etc. as well.
Good.
Yep, I read that already loaded up. And then the last one here, this is a game we covered last week. This is also being entered into the 10-line programming basic contest. This is also using the Microgames basic compiler, except this one was written for the Dragon 3264. In this particular case, we covered this exact same game last week on the Coco. Someone playing, anything playing it or anything. It's called Beauty Contest. And this is also in the Extreme 256 category. But last week he released the Coco versions. Now, because of the ROM differences and a few hardware differences, the way the Coco and Dragons are set up, this is the Dragon 3264 version of it. So that's a free download for you as well, and is also into the contest. And we'll see how it places in there. And of course, he's got competition from Erico for his new game too. So, but if you want to go take a look at it, you can actually download it for free off his itch.io page and give it a shot. And this is by the author of the Microgames basic compiler itself, Marco Spedaletti. So, and he's from Italy, if I remember correctly. So that's the game on news. Mark, did you want to do a commercial before I get into the main news? Because there's a fair bit of it, or do you want me to start plowing through it? Mark B, I should say.
What?
You work him up.
Oh, that's we can do a commercial.
Okay.
All right, where's my buttons?
Hi, I'm John.
And I'm Aaron of The Coco Show.
And you're watching or listening to the CoCoNation, the live and interactive talk show featuring the Tandy color computer and its cousins.
All hail the CoCoNation.
Future Vision Research is your source for FujiNet platforms, including the FujiNet for Tandy color computers. The FujiNet cartridge supports Coco models 1, 2, and 3 and comes with HDB-DOS DriveWire 3. Load files from SD card or connect to Wi-Fi and load files over the internet or your local Windows, Mac, and Linux computers. Applications from the FujiNet team allow you to follow news from all over the world, catch up on Mastodon messages, and even track the International Space Station. For more information and to purchase your own FujiNet devices, visit fvresearch.com.
In a world where RGB produces black and white video, one cable can make a difference. Switcheroo. CoCo3SCARTcable.com.
A little brush of joystick to to really bring our Coco experience to life. And now I'm thinking a flourish of blue to accent our Coco scene. And this scriptset blue might be, but as I'm looking at it against the canvas, it wouldn't be the right blue for me. We don't make mistakes on this show. We just have happy accidents. Now let's go for baseball blue. A nice hue to accent from our Coco, but not overpower the scene. Hi, I'm TJB Chris, the Bob Ross of the CoCoNation, and you're watching the CoCoNation live show. Now isn't that fun?
Okay, we are back.
Okay, on to the regular news, and there's a lot. So get your pillows ready.
Already done.
All right, first up, George Jansen released Lesson 15 Part E, or as he calls it, Palette Automation, the Basics plus, because this is the 4th extra episode on how to do palette animation automation. And in this particular case here, he's actually uploaded the disk image, I believe, to his channel on the Coco Discord already, so you don't have to type all this stuff in. And this is the final one, so this is basically the final episode on how to do this. Goes through the code a bit more carefully, does a little bit of a demo, I think at the end here, if I remember.
Looks like it's scrolling, and you can find too.
So this looks like you're scrolling a bunch of different colored X's going up the screen. It's actually not scrolling a darn thing. It's not moving memory at all. It's just total panel animation. As he mentions, you can make this smoother if you just did half X's with different palettes.
That was at the normal. That was at a slow speed.
But this is a technique that's been used in a lot of Coco 3 games. I mean, it was one of the big advantages of having a Coco 3 versus a Coco 1 and 2 is that you can make animations that look really complicated, quite simple. Like if you want, flames on a 4 enemy rocket ships plus your own ship, you could just cycle 3 or 4 palettes through yellows, whites, reds, oranges, and that kind of stuff, and it would actually do all the updated quote-unquote drawing without you actually having to draw anything really. It's just changing a palette register, which is a built-in basic command. So you can actually do some pretty cool stuff with it. I showed that waterfall demo a few weeks back that is basically entirely done this exact same way. And you combine that with actually drawing graphics. You did pretty impressive stuff in Coco 3's basic. And he is planning doing a level lesson 16. I don't know what's on yet, but he did mention he's got something in the works. Next up, this was actually something I got on the Coco list originally, but then I noticed Henry Strickland actually went and tried to hit Pierre Sarrazin's site. This is the author of CMOC, because his site contains not only the CMOC compiler itself, but a whole bunch of projects and libraries and stuff that use CMOC that you can download. And the site broke, and that's because he's moving to a different host with a different web address. Now, hopefully his permanent link is back to working here fairly soon, because that's the one that basically is supposed to stay consistent. But if just in case it's not, the new one here, you can roughly see on the screen, but it's in the show notes. So, I mean, you can hit it there. And like I mentioned many times before, CMOC is a C-like compiler for the Coco that runs, for Coco 1, 2, and 3. It runs under OS 9 or for OS 9 or for Disk Basic. There's some libraries and stuff that have been created by other people, and people have created entire games and utilities and stuff you can download. There's a whole bunch of them listed here. So it's actually quite widely used. And there's some pretty cool stuff on it. He's got some pretty advanced features on it, especially on the Coco 3. There's some really nice stuff on there. Next up, Coco Town returns to Nitrous 9. I'm really starting to like this guy even more than ever because he's covering Nitrous 9 quite a bit lately. But basically, in this case here, he's kind of learning the ins and outs of doing assembly language for Nitrous 9. Now, he's using LWASM, which does have an OS 9 mode. There's a command line option for doing that, which creates the module header and a bunch of other things. But what he's going through here is what is different about programming under Nitrous 9 or OS 9 versus doing Disk Basic. Because Disk Basic, normally you're talking directly to the hardware. And occasionally you might be going through some ROM routines, which generally tend to be a bit slower. Plus, if you need a lot of RAM, you're going to have to map the stupid ROMs back in just to do some stupid call like to read a key on the keyboard. But he wanted to learn what you had to do a hello world under Nitrous 9. Now, the main difference between OS 9 assembly language programming and Disk Basic assembly language programming is that OS 9, you have to write position independent code. Now, this is a bit less of an issue with level 2 on a Coco 3 because it generally will map the code in the same place. Unless you merge it with other modules, then it will move. So it's still a good idea to always make it position independent. But in level 1, you absolutely have to because you have absolutely no idea where it's going to load. You might have initialized a driver or an extra screen terminal or something like that, or have something else loaded in that you didn't the previous time. So where the program loads in memory is going to be different. So you have to write all your branches and your comparisons and stuff here to be based on relative addressing of where you are in RAM. So I want to, compare this number. If it's 14, I want to jump 30 lines ahead. You have to do it relative, like 30 lines plus from where I'm now. You can't say jump to address number, A000 or whatever. So he kind of learns that. And then he also starts learning about how the data area, which is uniquely assigned to each process, even if you have shared code running for multiple processes, that it's based on comma U. So the U address or register will point to the start of the data area and your start of your direct page because everybody gets their own. And the 609 supports direct page moving on any 256-byte boundary. So he's learning about how that works as well. Plus, little things like how do you set up the header properly for a machine language module versus, say, a device descriptor or something like that. So there's a fair bit to learn. And once you get used to it, I find it easier to program under Nitrous 9 than it is under Disk Basic because there's so many system calls already done that do a ton of stuff for you. So you don't have to worry about handling file I/O, which is absolutely terrible trying to do it under standard Disk Basic. Because the official ROM routines for Disk Basic are very raw. I mean, there's sector in, out, and pretty well that's it. You have to learn how directories and stuff work all on your own, whereas in Nitrous 9, that's all done for you with the proper calls, including stuff like creating directories and creating windows and all kinds of stuff is quite easy. So I'm glad he's going into this. He's kind of showing it from the perspective of doing it as a cross-assembly from LWASM, because that's what he's using on his Moon Patrol game project. When I do get to the chance to doing the CocoTech versions of doing Nitrous 9 assembly programming, because he's doing this already, this kind of solidified it for me. I'm going to show how to do it internally in Nitrous 9 or OS 9. So I'll be covering the level 1 assembler probably the most because that covers people that have Coco 1s and 2s with OS 9 level 1 as well as Coco 3s with OS 9 level 2. But I probably will eventually cover RMA, which is the relocatable macro assembler, which is quite a bit more powerful and can actually assemble things a fair bit faster because it's smart enough you don't have to, like if you have your code divided in several chunks, it doesn't have to reassemble everything at once. So it can do large projects a lot quicker than the level 1 assembler can do. I'm glad he's getting into this because he's actually explaining some of the basics, so I might be able to cheat and skip some of this stuff and just say, go watch Coco Town's videos for the basic part of how to do PIC code. And then I'll do some specific things like how to do graphics and read the joysticks or whatever type of thing. So this is actually a series he's planning on doing here. So this was the very first one where he's kind of just learning the ins and outs of how do you write assembly code for OS 9 legally. And there's definitely some reasons for doing it the way that it's done. He also shows you all the mistakes he made at the beginning too. So he shows you, habits that you would have from doing normal Disk Basic assembly language programming, like why that doesn't quite work on OS 9. And also, some of the things that look like they worked, but they really didn't. That was a favorite. And he actually did suss out exactly why it did what it did. And I kind of verified his explanation in the comments. So you guys can read that too. But I'll play a little bit of the intro here. And after that, if you're interested in programming assembly language for Nitrous 9 and you're familiar with LWASM by William Astle, definitely check this video out.
Hello and welcome. Now that I've found my way around Nitrous 9, it's time to start getting technical. So today we're going to have our first of a series of more technical deep dives into Nitrous 9. And today we're going to write a Hello World app in assembly language as runnable by Nitrous 9. We are going to go into the LWASM command line that I used and the various toolshed commands that I used to transfer things between my host and the virtual hard drive. We'll talk about how to make OS 9 API calls. We'll talk about what the module header is all about and how you set it up, the difference between data addresses and code addresses, and how they're crucial to Nitrous 9 module memory management. We'll talk about PC relative addressing and in general what position independent code is and why you need it. And we'll step through it all in the Mame debugger to see what the code does. I didn't realize that all of those considerations were going to be necessary, and my first version of the Hello World app did not take all of them into consideration. It looked fine, it looked reasonable, but it was riddled with bugs. And one by one, with help from the folks on the Coco Discord, I found those bugs and I fixed those bugs, and I found it a useful way to learn about Nitrous 9. So that's how I'm going to be presenting things to you. I'm going to show you the original version of the Hello World app, but I'm going to talk about it as if it were totally fine and there are no bugs, and then one by one I'm going to introduce those bugs and show them to you. It's a pedagogical technique known as lying. So I warn you not to take that first version of the code and say, all right, I've seen enough, let's just run with it. And you're going to kind of need to watch through the end to see what the final version of the code is. Or if you're impatient, just check the description. There is a link where you can go and find the final version of the code, and you can just start with that and then ignore this whole video. That's fine. I don't really care. Anyway, I'm excited to get going, so let's get going.
Anyway, a bit drier than most of his intros, but still a bit of humor thrown in the end, which is actually one of my favorite parts of his stuff. But really good if you want to get into, not waiting for me to do a CocoTech episode on it to get into programming assembly for Nitrous 9 and OS 9. And all the techniques he's talking about here apply to level 1 or level 2, Coco 1, 2, or 3, Dragon, 64, gimmicks, whatever else type thing. So next up after that, Henry Strickland actually sent a bit of an update. I'm going to play the whole video here. This is talking about his Bonobo board. I think that's how he pronounced it when he showed it last week. He said, my new Bonobo 2.4 circuit boards are working in both a Coco 2 and Coco 3 now, and a year ago we did roughly the same thing with a 4K Coco 1. These cards simply have a Pi Pico wired up to do three things. One, spoon feed a boot program into the Coco's RAM. Two, be a device for the Coco with a control port and a data port similar to a Becker port idea. And three, can optionally create FIRQ or NMI interrupts for the Coco, mainly for sending audio samples out the Coco's DAC port. These are untested yet. Eventually, these boards should be one way to provide network to the, how did he pronounce that again? Was it NECOT or NECOT? Game OS that he talked about last week. So anyway, this is a little video update, and I'll let Henry explain.
There's a Copico Bonobo card in a Coco 2 with the lid off because I've been debugging it with the oscilloscope, but I've got it working now. And over here in a Coco 3, there's also a Bonobo 2.4 card, and I'm going to show you it running on this Coco 3 with that screen. The firmware is written in Python at the moment. And let's see, come over here and do a make, and it's produced Bonobo Life Semi.py. And over here in Tony or Thony, Thonny, we've got Bonobo Life Semi.py, and it's gonna update it. And I go Control F2 to reboot things and F5 to upload the firmware into the Pi Pico. Dum-da-dum. This one is a little slow to load. And it loaded. It says waiting for reset. So that came through the USB cable there that plugs into the Pico there. So I'm gonna wait for the green light to come on and push reset. And there we go. It has loaded by spoon feeding a binary that was compiled from C that plays a game of life in the top half of the screen with semi-graphics, while an orange monolith lays at the bottom half of the screen. And the reason it's only playing life on half the screen is because I originally got this version running on a Coco 1 with only 4K, and that's what I was able to compute with my 4K of memory. So that's a demo of the Bonobo board spoon feeding code into a Coco and running it.
Now, I find interesting here is the spoon fitting thing. So basically, you can flash the cartridge while it's on, And you just hit reset, and when it tries to trap, a cartridge auto start, it will actually have the new code there to run. So basically, you don't have to power on and restart or boot an OS or anything like that. Just there you go. There's the new program. It's almost like having an EEPROM live type thing, which I thought was pretty cool. Am I understanding that right, Rick? I'm sure you probably know more about this than I do.
Well, yeah, the whole idea is it just says, hey, yeah, I'm your disk controller and trust me. And then it goes off and does what it does. And so spoon feed, here's your code.
Did you notice that just about every screen has Strickland on it somewhere?
Well, he takes these to shows, and I know he does that so people don't steal his computers and stuff.
Yeah. Look for the name on the blue tape, and you know why it should be.
Well, that's a pretty cool idea. I mean, he's using USB in this case. I'm assuming at some point that'll work over the network too, so you can actually
Because if you think about it, this isn't a ROM, so to speak. You can't just put a disk ROM in or something. You have to load the Coco with code from this without any sort of built-in support from Tandy. So that's the whole spoon feeding process. It's just
it's pretty cool. I like this. Actually, this is kind of cool because it makes it easier for a user that's not technically minded. You don't have to explain. You have to exec this address or hit this menu option. It's just hit reset. That's it.
And away it goes. Yeah.
And you can load something from another machine through USB, and like I said, eventually by Ethernet or something as well. So Henry, thanks for the update. I'm really looking forward to seeing some of the demos you're going to be doing with your gaming networking OS.
Exactly. That's going to be the boon. We can get our community to gaming on Thursday nights for real. Bring your Coco.
Real head to head. Next up that, and I'm hoping maybe somebody in the chat or somebody on the panel can help with this, because this is something I used to look at occasionally too, though I haven't in a while. But there used to be archives of the Princeton listserv, which is basically a Coco-oriented system of messages and even some files and stuff that Princeton University used to host back in the 90s and 2000s, et cetera. And I'd occasionally grab stuff up there too. Alan Huffman went to go research something here, and he found out the old list of all the old messages is gone. So he went to go grab it from where he normally would look up, and it's toast.
Well, Dennis posted links into the mailing list on where to get it.
Oh, so it is still around?
Yep.
Oh, cool.
Dennis
I do know
had,
the files are still around because I have a copy of
machine.
them. But sorry, go ahead.
Dennis had it copied on his machine.
Oh, nice.
Dennis Kitts, right?
That's correct.
Okay.
Because I do remember referencing this. I might even have some messages posted on there. I wasn't too active on the listserv at the time. I did more of the OS9 Echo and Coco Echoes on FidoNet.
There's a Coco files section, an OS9 files section, and the list archive itself.
Awesome. I didn't realize he'd done that. I'm probably a bit behind on my emails. Cool. There's a lot of good reference stuff in there. In fact, the very first announcement of what the 609 could do was on this, if I remember correctly. Is that right, Alan?
It sounds familiar to me because, back in the CompuServe days, they probably talked about it, didn't they?
Well, this was the old, PUCC?
Yeah.
So, yeah, I remember that.
Because I remember the guy, the Japanese guy that said, so guys, find all the secret stuff on the 609 yet? And Kevin Darling goes, what?
I think I've actually got a dot matrix printout of that around here somewhere.
And then he goes, yeah, there's like block memory transfers and there's hardware divide and extra registers.
Of this
and I mean, people had been using and even advertising 609s and Rainbow and stuff to say it's, this is low power and much cooler. Like if you're running a 512 Gabriel, it'll help keep your inside of your Coco 3 case cooler because the chip runs a lot cooler. And Kevin went and tested out the TFM, and he actually did a little memory dump showing you before and after. And he goes, yep, it works.
Nice.
So they'll always hold that history for me because this is where that first showed up in, I think, April of 92.
That was the next question. When was
and
that?
Here you are, still doing it.
Yeah. That's kind of captured my life. But yeah, that was the start of Power Boost from Burke and Burke and Nitrous 9 from Gale Force Enterprises. That's where that whole thread started from, was that post on the Princeton listserv. So I'm glad it's archived. I didn't catch that message.
I was so anti-Nitrous 9 because you guys were coming up with something every week, and I was actually running business on my Coco, and I didn't want my OS to change every week. So I was the power boost guy. Hey, he's got these few little things, and by golly, we can trust him. And,
well, that sounds like you in Windows 11 right now.
Yeah, kind of, yeah.
Yeah, we didn't quite release updates that quick.
It's pretty
Not in the early
often.
days, anyway. I think we had a schedule roughly about once a month if we figured we had enough stuff, and we'd upload the upload file. Like, it was really hard in the first days, too, because we were trying to do this patch file, same as Power Boost did. And if you didn't have the exact right module, like if you patched one byte, it would fail, and then, of course, it would crash. And eventually we said, yeah, we've changed enough, screw it. We're just going to distribute the binaries as is. And thank God Microware was okay with that.
Nice.
Or we could have been sued out of existence, I'm sure. Oh, glad to hear that. I'll have to go catch up on the listserv stuff here. I do have a copy of the Princeton files already. Somebody made a hard drive image of that, as well as CompuServe. OCN, the OSN Community Network, was another one. There's a fourth one. And there's still stuff missing. I mean, those aren't complete on some of those anyway. So still stuff to find, but that's cool. That's really cool to hear that.
So you got stuff like that archived locally with you, and do you even know if some of the games that you're looking for might be in there? Or
I've gone through the Princeton, OCN, CIS, which is CompuServe, and what the fourth one, I can't remember off the top of my head, but I've gone through 4 of the archives I have in the, like Wild West Poker. I'll give you one example. I cannot find on any of those. I originally got in CompuServe, so obviously the CompuServe download that's in there is not complete. That's where I got it from back in the
job, isn't it?
So yeah, that's too bad, because it's actually the best poker game on the Coco that I know of. 2 to 6 players, animated cards, about 12 different derivatives of poker, so you never get bored with the same ones, and you can keep betting and switching between games and keep your bets going, like you keep the money between the games and stuff. It was actually quite a good one, but I found part of it on a backup hard drive floppy backup from work, because I did play it there once in a while if I didn't feel like coding. And unfortunately, it's a stream backup of the entire 80 meg hard drive it was coming off of. And, over the years, since I didn't have to do work stuff anymore, I just would grab a disk from the backup set and use it for something else. And that happened to be one cut off in the middle. Oh. I have part of it from the first disk. The next disk is gone. So anyway, no, Alan Huffman has been a busy little bee this last week. So what he's been doing, we kind of talked about this last week, where he's been going through his old disks and just kind of figure out what all stuff has he got stored where. And he's finding a bunch of stuff he didn't even remember he wrote. And there's a lot of it. So I'm just going to cover what he's covered this week here. So 2 places to look for stuff from Alan. There's a Subetha Software page on Facebook where a lot of the stuff will be from this week. And he's also got his blog where he actually goes into more technical details about talking about certain things. And there's a few of those he did this week as well. So I guess we'll just start going through here. First one you can see is one he actually did for the VIC. A game called Eggs, because his VIC was 20 was actually the very first computer he ever had, and he got a Coco 2 a little bit later on. So if you want to interested in that, he's actually found the source code listing from that. But if you scroll down here, starting with there, so he mentioned to me specifically, so the SE Maze demo on EOU is 1.05, and that's one 3D maze, wander through, like kind of like we saw earlier, except much, much faster. And he's actually found out he's got a 107 version here. And he says he's got code changes for full OSK compile, so apparently ported it to, say, the MM1 and the TC70 and stuff for OS 9 68000. But then he made maze parameters definable as well, so he's going to have to pull that out and maybe recompile it for me, and I'll include that in the next EOU update. So I don't know if that means that the command line options, you can change the size of the maze or something. I have no idea. Next one after that, proof that he sold InfoPatch, a program that patched Infocom disks to run on a Coco 3 80-column screen, and also patched the disk system so it would run at 6 millisecond track to track instead of 30, which is the standard that RS-DOS does, this basic. So I think Ed Snyder has done patches to do the Infocom games at 64 columns. So apparently there was an 80-column version even before that these guys did back in 93, 94. And also with faster disk access on a real floppy drive, because every floppy drive that Tandy sold for the Coco could run at least at 20 milliseconds, but they defaulted the DOS to 30 in case you had a third-party drive you threw on a really old, crappy one. But almost all the ones Tandy sold, except for the very first gen tech ones, actually can run at 6 millisecond just fine. And it's a noticeable speed increase. It also sounds better because instead of a low, chunky sound like you're just getting as the head goes across, at 6 milliseconds, it's just a little zzz, and it's done. So anytime you're going between tracks, it's faster, like literally 5 times faster. So it does make loading faster too. So I was kind of curious to see that. And just playing the Infocon games on an 80 column screen, that's even better than 64, right?
Let me say at this point that Sculptor, the relational database, will run on floppies. You really want the track speed.
Yeah. Yeah.
To search a floppy. Oh man, it's fun.
Yeah, I still have to get together with you to see how much room that's going to take and see if I can install it on EOU, because that would be something for people to play with, because that was like a quote-unquote real database.
Well, now keep in mind they still live and they still sell, and that's probably why it's not available on the archive, etc.
Oh, okay. I didn't realize that.
Yeah, they still sell in Sculptor.
I wonder if we could maybe get permission as kind of a promo for people who want to, use it on modern equipment, because I'm sure they don't sell the 689 version anymore.
Yeah, certainly not. Just no one's organized enough to.
But it might be a good thing, like a freebie teaser to promote the database itself and say you can kind of learn the basics of the old version on the Coco.
It would make a nice page on their website. Look at these old farts.
Yeah. So here's another one that he found. I said, I have no idea what missile.c was going to be, but seeing as I turned the mouse cursor into a plus probably means that I was in there and wanted to try to make a missile command program. I have seen a basic 9 missile command, not by Alan, that somebody had done. In fact, I might even have the source code for that on the EOU now, or it might be one of the stuff I've got queued up for the next release. But this one looks a little bit more advanced here because he actually starts setting up like signal intercept traps for the mouse packet and stuff, which basically means you can actually have your program running on its own, completely oblivious that there even is a mouse, and it'll auto-update the mouse cursor drawing on the screen through the OS itself. You don't have to do anything in your code. And then anytime a person clicks a mouse button, it'll actually trigger an event, or a signal in this case, and then your signal trap, it'll jump over there and you go, okay, somebody press the mouse button. What do I want to do with it? And you can actually see some of the code doing that right here with the mouse signal stuff. So this is actually pretty advanced way of doing it, because you're not just manually polling the mouse and, oh, I got to move the cursor because you moved it. Oh, he clicked the button in a constant loop, checking all these things. You just let the code run faster. And the only time it actually comes through to you is when the OS itself picks it up. And it checks, at most once every 60th of a second, but can be less if you program the mouse refresh rate to be a bit slower. So that's cool. Maybe he'll finish it. Maybe we'll have a full-blown missile command on the Coco under OS 9. That'd be cool. Next one he found source code to is called Phantom's Lair. And this is actually we mentioned earlier, because basically it's based on this SE Maze 3D program we mentioned earlier, and there is a version of it on EOU right now if you want to through the maze. But this is actually where he's going to kind of change it using the same engine to make Phantom Slayer for OS 9, basically. And he's actually got a little bit of like a maze design here and some of the actual code. He even was planning on doing it for the MM1, it looks like, too, because he's got another OSK reference. But it was going to run on both. And he actually showed a screenshot we showed last week of his little Phantom drawn on the maze. And that is when he's kind of hinted he's kind of curious. He might go and finish that one, which would be really cool. The next one that he totally forgot he ever did is called ADF Edit. And this is an auto dialer editor for Supercom. So Supercom had these little ADF files, which is auto dial file. And it was basically like what the phone number was and what baud rate you wanted to be at, maybe your, bits, parity, etc. settings, maybe some auto prompts for usernames and passwords and stuff like that. And Supercom was one of the main OS 9 terminal programs for the Coco 3 back in the day. Written by Dave Phillipson originally. He's very active in the Coco Discord to this day, so you can go talk to him if you have any questions about it. And then I'm trying to remember, was it Randy Weaver, Rick, that did the
Wilson,
right, did the updates to it later. I had some updates too that I did even beyond that to speed it up back in the day, and that's one of those other discs I randomly pulled out of the backup archive and wrote over with something stupid. So if I want to do it, I'd have to do it all over again. I do kind of remember what I did though, so I mean, if I ever got to that point. Now, one thing I will mention, we've been talking to some of the people that were involved with RIBS, the BBS system that was actually FidoNet compatible. And it was a way for a lot of us Coco people to keep talking to each other without having to pay for expensive things like Delphi and CompuServe and Genie and stuff that would travel around the world so everybody could talk to each other. It was a bit slower, of course. But basically, it was based on FidoNet, which basically let them, every evening, they would pass messages off to the next person in the chain. And eventually you'd get messages back and forth, and you would talk to people all over the world basically for free. Just the BBS people had to pay their, after midnight rates.
I did it.
And, sorry?
I did it.
Yep, I did it too.
We had a TBBS node or whatever it was called.
Yeah, there was a couple Coco local ones. STGNet by Scott Griepentrog was one. TBBS was another one, I think. And then Ribs was actually using the protocols that FidoNet the PC used, which means this worked between Amigas, Atari STs, Macs, Cocos, PCs. And at one point, they had like 60,000 nodes worldwide or something. There's still some now. And Mark Bosley, which I'd kind of forgotten about when I actually found some of the source code, and long story behind that, but basically Mark was one of the testers. And he's still in contact with the original author of it, Ron Byler, he's in charge of the person that took it over from Ron.
We ought to get him on the show.
Which
we're
really
going to try to do. We're going to try to make it a special Ribs episode. So Wes Gale, the guy that sold Nitrous 9, was involved with it. Charles West, Chuck, the one that Mark knows, is the one who took over and kind of did the rewrite from 2.02 to 2.10. Mark was one of the testers. Bill Noble was involved for a bit of it too, but I can't get a hold of him, so I doubt he'll be on. But basically, we've gotten contact with at least 3 of the original authors. There's a few others that helped with a few things too, and I'm going to try to make kind of like we did the History of OS9 interview series. I'm going to try to get an episode where we can get all the Ribs guys to talk about FidoNet in general and what it was for those of you that weren't involved with that back in the 80s and 90s.
Was there any file transfers?
Oh yeah, there was on. You could do a door to games on there. You could have multiple message bases.
I'm trying to remember.
The lists, all kinds of stuff was on there.
Because I think the TBBS that we had was in Lambertville, Michigan, but our club was associated with it, and we had a node on there. But he had maybe 4 CD-ROMs attached to his system, through
like a Coco?
No, it's a Model 4.
Okay.
And you could. It was all accessible, We had a little Coco corner on his Model 4.
Okay. Yeah, because Ribs was actually natively run on a Coco 512K, and it was written in a combination of some assembly and mostly Basic 09.
I still remember, even as close as Chicago, when I was in Milwaukee, you could either get stuff by long distance dialing Sanvi or something, or you could wait till the next day and have it all come flooding in on Stignet or Ribs or something.
Yeah. Like Stignet got up to about 20 nodes, I think.
Yeah.
We actually, when Scotty actually had a map of the United States. I think there was a couple in Canada.
I think that was one of the ones that was a local call for me. I can't remember who.
Back then, it's like if you asked Google, a question and you get an answer right away. Back then, you would ask somebody something about maybe your machine or something, or where to buy something, and you wait for the return.
Yeah, and several days in the case of FidoNet, because they're trying to make it as cheap as possible.
Right,
yeah,
right.
We
It
thought
came
that
around
was
when
great.
it chained around to you. Yeah.
We thought it was great then. We got the information right away. What
It
we
was
thought.
great. Yeah, I called.
Yeah.
I called some guy in Kenosha, and he knew everything that had happened in Chicago yesterday.
Yeah, I used it a lot. We had, I don't know how many FidoNet nodes we had here in Saskatoon, at least 5 or 6. In fact, when I lived in a really old house in Saskatoon here with a bunch of roommates who were all computer nerds, we had 6 phone lines coming in for BBSs and then 1 for talking. And
right.
three of the nodes were for FidoNet. We had an Opus one, we had an actual Fido, and I can't remember what the other FidoNet compatible one was. And then I had my own running on mine, and then we had a Tier City Model 4P running another one there called Spacer's Rest. In fact, the person that ran that BBS was in the chat earlier here too. I don't know if he's still there. But yeah, we had a ton of stuff, but we had multiple FidoNet nodes going all over the place, and it was just fun. It was like going on CompuServe or Delphi or Genie with time delays, but not costing X dollars an hour.
Right.
It was free, basically, and we had a really good deal too because the main guy that headed Saskatchewan, my province, he was in Regina, which is about a 3-hour drive away. He worked for SaskTel, the local phone company, and he actually got them to let us do all our long distance calls within the province for free after midnight till 8 a.m. Like, he didn't even have to pay. None of us had to pay. So we would be sending stuff off between cities and the province for free. When you cross provincial borders, you had to pay a little bit, but we had a pretty good deal.
I can remember having the plan because $7.95 an hour, was it?
Yeah,
I think
for a while
so,
there, yeah.
Yeah, so
and depending which baud rate, it was more if you had faster baud rates. And
You dropped a 300 baud for the conference talks.
Well,
chats.
you had to plan on who you were going to talk to, and you couldn't just lounge around because pretty soon the time's gone.
Well, that's why I had
gotta get off.
I had my Radio Shack modem that went down to 300 baud because CompuServe was cheap at 300 baud. You could sit on a chat.
Yeah, if you want to sit on chat, you do that. And if you wanted to download new programs, you'd kick it up to 24 because proportionally it was cheaper.
Right, and
It was just
kicked in.
Life was much different then.
And it was worse here in Canada because we had a surcharge from DataPack. Because on here you had to log into DataPack, then that would go on to CompuServe. You had to pay their surcharge fee. So for us, it was like $18 an hour or something stupid.
We had a couple of guys in the Coco group. We'd meet every month, and they would say that they got on CompuServe, and they charge you for that stuff. And we said, "Well, you know that, right?" And he goes, "Well, I got a $70 fee or something like that, and my mom's gonna kill me."
Oh, right.
He wasn't even paying attention to what time it was. He was on.
What we did is we would I probably shouldn't say this, but we would get some of the login CompuServe things from the Radio Shack store by just peeling open the paper and copying down the starter password and stuff, and then put it back in the shelf. And then we'd go back and we get about 8 of us, all logged in at once at whatever maximum speed we can get, and then just rape the downloads on the Coco stuff and the OS9 stuff, and whatever else. Get the entire library, spend a full weekend because CompuServe didn't work weekends. And I know there's a few times where we actually did a check to see what the bill would have been if we were paying it, because of course we were on a hacked account, and it was like $7,000-8,000.
Wow.
I was bad.
I can remember why I have some discs that have different crap on it, and you don't understand what it is on there, but I save stuff off, and come to find out sometimes you would see, I remember, just cryptic names on the disc to tell me what the download was,
Yeah, I got better, though. I started paying for it legitimately. I had a legitimate account afterwards, but I was a teenager. What did I care? All right, this ADF editor here, just to get back on topic, is basically to set up these little files, these little text files for Supercom to do these auto dials, and also initial logins, etc. too. So he kind of forgot he even did that. After that, Towel 1.05 has been located. Now to figure out how to build it. So the version of Towel we have currently on EOU is 1.04. And 1.05, he found the source code here, which is mentioning some notes modified for TC win and no mouse, tagging files auto moves to the next file, removed unnecessary readers after forking commands. So he did some more improvements on it, but he only has a source at this point, hasn't found an executable. And so he's going to try to get that resurrected. And he's already told me that if he gets it going, he'll give it to me so I can include that on the next EOU release as well.
What does the name Towel have to do with the application?
It's related to Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, where every cool fruit needs his towel.
Exactly so.
Okay.
No, not cool fruit, hoopy fruit.
Hoopy fruit.
Oh,
Yeah.
right,
Hoopy,
right.
yeah.
Sorry.
Because it's a tough galaxy. Everyone's trying to screw you or do you, so you really got to know where your towel
is.
Am I sorry I asked?
No, you have far.
This is back in that geek nerd discussion we were talking about earlier.
Yeah.
Next up here it says, wow, I'd forgotten how much work I'd done on my EthaWin labor program. And for those looking at the screen, it's like edit employee, like employee numbers, what the hours are they work each week, when they're in and out on their shifts, etc. He says, I was working as disc jockey music at the time, and scheduling at small retail places like that was always such a hassle. I created a program that let all the employees have a list of when they wanted to work, when they could work, and when they were unavailable. It gave a visual representation, helped the manager create schedules that worked for everyone. It could keep you from making someone close then open, close, then open the next morning, for instance. The goal was to make it go through combinations to generate schedules. And then we just pick the one that you linked or liked, fun times. And he's got a screenshot of it. And that's actually, I wouldn't mind of using this back in the day when I was in charge of a couple of departments back at the print shop, because I had to deal with this all the time. And I had to do it more by hand. And that's, during our busy times, we were running 24/7
We
with
still
3
need this
shifts a
today.
day, weekends included. So that would have been pretty handy. Sorry?
We still need this today.
Right.
Now, it sounds like he said, I forgot how much work I put into it. So I don't know if that means he thought it wasn't complete yet or he still had other stuff planned, but looks like a pretty nice little interface, actually. Then he also mentioned that he was working on a thing called Ethermate, which was going to be a deskmate-like program using the Etherwin text window user interface. Now, if you run Tile, you've seen what the Etherwin interface is, which basically it's kind of almost looks like a GUI, except it runs on a text screen. You don't need a mouse. Now, later on, he made it mouse optional. But basically, you just use arrow keys and stuff, and you could actually do it. And he actually started working on kind of a poor man's deskmate for that particular thing. So you'd run it just on a 40 or 80 column text screen, and the way you went. So you didn't need much RAM, or it wouldn't run as slow as some of the graphic stuff was. That's not Coco related, so skip that one. Yeah, Skype shutting down. That was a big headline on a few of my tech podcasts.
Man.
Okay, now this one I'm going to skip for now because it actually is covered more detail in his blog post about the same subject. Here's a list of all the ports some of the old machines used to use. So.
All the ports.
And I think the rest I'll be covering in his blog. So I think that covers pretty well everything. So let's go over to his blog now. Okay, so this is one where he actually found an old program and he was trying to run it. It would crash his Coco 3 every time. And basically, if you want to duplicate this, you can try this on your Coco 3 Live if you want to. Just type clear 16,500, then width 40 or width 80. And you'll get a blown up screen with crash crap on it like this. And Win Master kind of explained what is going on here. So basically, when you're doing any access to the 40 area column screen on a Coco 3, it has to map in the memory management unit block the screen's in. And it maps it, I think, at 4,000. Which, if you don't clear too much memory, your stack builds from the end of 32K and works its way down. And normally it's defaulted to clear 200, so you have plenty of room. And it'll map it in temporarily, do the drawing on the screen from the basic ROM, and then kick it back out, and put your basic program stuff back in. Well, if you do a big clear, that's telling the stack you're going to have to move and leave that memory above that reserved for, a machine language subroutine or something, or strings. String arrays and stuff like that can be stored there. And basically what happens here is that if you do a fairly large clear, it'll move down to the stack is right in the middle of the screen block. That's going to get mapped in when you do 48 column screens. Now, of course, hardware interrupts and all kinds of things, jump to subroutines, all use the stack. And now the actual stack with the actual data that's on the stack has been mapped out. And you've got this screen mapped in instead. And all of a sudden, say the 60 hertz interrupt comes in, for the timer. Or for a sound routine or something like that. And all of a sudden, or blink the cursor. And it's gone. It tries to jump back to the stack to go to, say, an RTS address. And now you've got whatever text you put on the screen instead. And it goes and jumps off into random never land. And poof, the machine crashes. So he's got a whole blog post kind of explaining it. And now he's got to figure out, he's sure he wouldn't have left it this way. So he figures he must have an updated version of this code here that actually would have fixed this. And this was actually a text viewing program for DiskBasic. So you could actually read like a document file or a text file, the directions for a game or something you downloaded. And that was something that, we got basically built-in stuff like list in OS 9, and we've got the view utility that's included with the OU, so there's a lot of better ways to do it in OS 9, but there wasn't really any standard for doing this on a Coco with DiskBasic. So he had this nice little utility to do it, and then he tried to run it after he figured out what it was, and it crashed, and then he figures he must have done an update to it later on that would have fixed this in some way. Maybe, not clear quite as much, or clear enough for only doing a line at a time or whatever. So he's still trying to hunt down the new one, but yeah, nice big explanation here with William. Sorry?
Why did he spell colors like that? He's from Texas.
Where are you looking?
Weird.
There. Colors. This guy came from Lufkin.
Oh, this might have been a download thing too. I don't know. I'm just glad he's spelling it right.
If you want to crash a Coco, I learned this a long time ago. first off, there's nothing you can type into the computer that would hurt the computer, right? You know,
Well, if you whack it on top with your fist.
well, nothing you can type in though to make it.
Yeah, because the
blow its
joke was nothing you can enter from your keyboard will damage your Coco, and
Right.
they would go, no, that's incorrect. I've poured Dr. Pepper on it; it does damage it.
Yes.
Oh, that works.
See, I was
yeah.
gonna say a lot. How many times over the years, the 40 or 50 years that we've been using the machines, have you either put in a disk controller or a ROM pack when the computer's on already, and then
Oh, right. And
then you
yeah.
get that flushing feeling when you find out that
everything
it's
goes,
on.
"Bleh," and then you turn it back on and it still works.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've done it where it didn't
Jesus.
fully work. Like that halt line gets blown, and all of a sudden your disk controller doesn't work properly. Everything else seems to be fine.
Right,
Oh,
right,
geez.
that happens. Yeah.
Anyway, if you want the whole technical review of also talking about the program that he was trying to resurrect here, Wim Astle has a bunch of comments that are near the end here explaining exactly what's going on, which I kind of gave you the Cole's Notes version, probably with a few mistakes.
What?
But yeah. And he said, oh yeah, here's what the program looks like when it was actually run. So he's got this little text file he's viewing here. So basically, here's a list of the files on the disk. Select a file to view or Q to quit, and it used his little Ethowin, arrow key driven quote unquote GUI.
And a subscription disc.
Next time, these are kind of related. The next two, this is the later one because that just happened to be the order I found them in. And this is Coco 3 Basic and on-air go-to with negative line numbers. So there's some weirdness in the way the Coco Basic is ran, especially for on-air go-to on the Coco 3 specifically, where they treat integers, 60-bit integers, sometimes as signed, sometimes as unsigned. And what happens here is that on-air go-to, the line number you're trying to go to is treated as signed. So if you do like on-air go-to 50,000, which I think is what he's using as an example here, it actually returns an error because it goes, that wraps back. You want line number negative 14,020 or whatever the heck it works out to be. So he kind of goes through and figures out. So basically the way to get around is make sure that your line numbers are kept at 32,767 or less for your on-air go-to routine. You can have some other line numbers for other subroutines after that if you want, because go sub does it properly. Regular go-to does it properly. On-air doesn't. So a little bit of a quirk there. And this is related to something he talked about a couple days earlier here, where he's going through using decimal, hexadecimal, and octal, which is something almost nobody ever uses on Basic. We talked about it a bit last week. But using stuff like and or, if you want to do logical ands and ors of numbers together that happen to be integer style, the sign part will screw that up too. Like you'll see, print ampersand 8001, which is a signed number, negative, wouldn't that be -2, -1? I usually just type them in. So, or +7 in this case, and it'll give you a legal function call error because it's trying to do signed and it goes and screws up. So there's definitely some quirks in the way that the different numbering systems are handled, particularly when it's trying to do integers. I will mention Basic 9 also treats integers as signed, though it is smart enough that if you do a signed number and pass it to, say, the seek command, it will use it as an unsigned number there, which will let you do up to 65,535. But unfortunately, in Basic 9, most of the time, if you're dealing with big files, you're going to have to just use real numbers anyway, because you can have a file way bigger than 64K. So he goes through and it gives you some examples and when it works, when it doesn't, when it returns the error, etc. Like here, it's showing a decimal or hex. Like even if you're using a decimal that's a positive number, it internally is going to treat it as a negative number and give you the error. So little quirk you should be aware of if you're dealing with that type of numbers inside of regular extended basic. Next after that, TRS-80 Retro Programming did a quick little uncommented clip of just showing him trying to simulate a spinning asteroid. I think he's using draw statements for this in P mode 4, just in basic. So I'll just play a little clip of that. And I think he's using the angle part of the draw command where you can switch it between the 4 basic angles, 0, 90, 180, 270. But it does an okay job. I mean, that looks like it. I don't think you could write a full speed game based on that, once you did some optimizations to it. Next up, this is pretty cool. Mauricio Mate, who's created the CP400's duplicates and slightly stylized a little bit differently than the original ones from the 80s. of the joysticks that the CP400 had, and he calls this the Brazilian Black Beauty.
Nice.
But nice. What's
A
that, Nick?
shaved one? Is that a shaved Tandy one?
Nope. This is a 3D printed design based on the original CP400 ones that used to have the colored sticks coming out. They have like red and cyan. I think.
Bright red one and the bright green one.
Remember that.
There you go. This one, it's got both buttons. It goes on either side, and it's the Black Beauty.
Actually, has a video here where he's playing it on a Coco 3, playing Rampage. And he's even got that little spring back mechanism there too. And you've got, of course, got the dual buttons. I thought it's a pretty slick looking design. That is a Black Beauty, honestly.
The sleek Black Beauty, yes.
Yeah. Next up after that, Simon Jonason's been doing some experiments and he's getting some people to try it on real hardware. Nick can probably explain this better than I, but basically, if you want to do the equivalent of artifact colors on a PAL system, it's done the opposite axes. So artifact colors on NTSC is basically odd even pixels. Is basically the basic version. I mean, there's some more subtleties to it than that, but generally, your red, blue, white, black is based on horizontal single pixels or double pixels. And here he's working on doing PAL artifact behavior, which is done vertically. So you get these little horizontal stripes, and certain colors will mix together and make it look like a brand new color, and others, as you can see here, actually look like stripes. But basically, he's using a thing by doing some timing on the VDG, I believe, switching between modes, etc., or something along that line. He calls it wobbling. That you can get that same type of artifact in colors using SemiGraphics 2412, but on an NTSC-based system. So if I zoom up the screen here, you'll see that some of the is very obviously striped, but some of these actually kind of gel together to make subtle shade differences like this. A couple different yellows actually look pretty solid, and some of the cyans and stuff here, and some of the magentas actually, look like actual full-blown regular colors. And SemiGraphics already gives you the 9 colors, including black, as it is. So in this way, you might be able to get 20 or 30 colors that actually are colors. You obviously have to do some positioning limitations just to get the effect to work properly. So this was somebody testing it on NTSC, and if I remember, somebody had a reply here showing it running on a. Whoops, that's not what I wanted to do. Go away. I think he had a shot that somebody had done on a CP400, which has kind of got that weird Brazilian PAL, which is a little different than regular PAL, but not the NTSC either. I think it's like 60 hertz PAL or something. Yeah, here it is. And you can see here on a PAL system, it actually really does some nice blending colors here. You're not seeing the stripes as much as you can still see them in some cases, but a lot of these colors over here actually look pretty smooth.
And so those speeds are CRTs, where it will blur better.
Yeah, which this actually is a CRT Panasonic TV. So
yeah, that's what I mean.
And you used this technique, I think, in Donatville, but it gets 6 colors on the screen once, didn't you?
Way back, yeah. I mean, it doesn't look so good nowadays with LCDs and all that.
Yeah, because they're so sharp, you'll see the stripes every time.
Back in the day, yeah, when it was TV, RF, CRTs, yeah, it did work.
Yeah. Now, Rondo, I wanted to ask you, because I know you sometimes test Simon's little graphical routines here.
Yeah.
For some of his experiments. Were you involved with this one? Did you try it on an actual Coco?
No. I think I was out of town.
Oh, right. Yeah, you were out for the funeral.
Yeah. Yeah, he is a genius, I must say.
But yeah, just looking at this chunk here in the lower right portion of the screenshot we're looking at here, most of those look pretty smooth. You can see a little bit of the lines in a couple of them, but most of them, compared to some of the stuff up here, I mean, you definitely can get some extra shades. Next up, Terry Trapp, who's got his own YouTube channel. He's been working on, doing RGB to VGA conversions, etc. So he mentions here at the beginning of the week, Coco 3 composite sync board, almost laid out, off to the manufacturer later today. Plugs directly in the bottom of the Coco 3. This is so you can use the GBS 8200, which is a kind of a video adapter plugin, I think, if I remember correctly. But they need the composite. It's kind of like the SCART cable stuff. You need a composite signal to do the timing and stuff properly.
Yeah, it's an upscaler. And it doesn't, as I recall, the GPS doesn't take the composite sync. You have to bring it to separate syncs together.
Okay, so it's kind of like when you're adapting, say, an Atari ST versus an Amiga versus a Coco monitor type thing, or 2GS or whatever.
Yeah,
because some of those had separate syncs and some of them combined syncs and negative versus positive.
Yeah, I think this one's combining the two syncs together into one signal. That's GBS needs.
Okay.
Yeah.
So he hasn't released a video yet, and he usually does videos on this stuff when he gets it done. So maybe he's just been busy. We'll probably do it this weekend, and we'll see how it goes when he follows up. Next up, we have a post from Thomas Cherryholmes. This was on the Coco group of Facebook, linking to the page I'm showing you now, which is the FujiNet kind of developers page. He mentions here, this is an update. When doing HTTP GET, which I think is to get files, correct, if I'm correct, right? You want to download something?
Fetching versus posting, yeah.
Yeah. So he said, when opening an HTTP GET connection, use mode equals 12. Mode equals 4 now does URL encoding of the path when it's passed in and will probably not be what you want. While mode equals 4 is also an HTTP GET, it will attempt to resolve file names and encode them so that they can be safely passed to and from a web server. It is intended for accessing plain files on HTTP and WebDAV servers. And then he gives an example on Atari Basic, because of course that's where FujiNet started on, how to do the difference here. So basically it's just an update for developers that the behavior of that's going to be a little different. And then he has a geek nerd explanation of it, going into great detail. Seems to be the theme of the show for me today. Next up after that, we have an update from David Collins in the Facebook Motorola 689, 639, 6800 Assembly Language Programming channel. That's a mouthful. And basically, he's updated the firmware to support timing interrupts on his 63C09 based single board computer. So this is a 3 megahertz based machine. All the interrupt functions and handling are now generated by the Arduino-based microcontroller, which also manages priority interrupt control, which means you can tell which interrupts are more important and should be processed first if you get more than one triggering at a time. From other subsystems such as serial-based I/O. So that's kind of cool. And I think, remember, is it Alan, if he's still on the call here, was this one that you actually have one of these, or is it a different single board computer?
That's a different single board computer.
Oh, okay.
They've all been talking together recently too. So you might start to see some compatibility between them.
Oh, cool. Next up, and this is a follow-up from Jim Gary. So I covered the game port he did called Bally's Alley, originally by John Collins in 1980. Now, this was the one that was on the Bally Astrocade, which is basically an older video game console, but it actually had a basic cart with a fairly limited screen real estate for text. So this is actually his blog post kind of talking about the game itself, how it's set up, how he converted it to the MC10. So this is kind of one of his deep dives on how he did one of these conversions type thing. And he did some changes to the map here. Shows both versions. Like the text was so limited there. If you remember from last week, it's basically got these little single digit entries for doing certain commands instead of having to type in an entire text command. So it's a lot quicker to enter them, obviously, but it takes a lot less screen real estate because you don't have to like fill in entire words. So if you want a bit of a deep dive into one of Jim Gary's MC10 ports, that's a good thing. And he does this for quite a few of his things. Sometimes he'll do them like weeks later. Sometimes he'll do them with like as he's doing the actual conversion. And speaking of Jim, another one he did here is called Poetry Writer, originally by Ron Clark in 1981. And this was originally for Arcsoft Publishers, and it has been ported to the Coco before. Now, I don't think that's where it originated, from what I gather, but I'm not positive. Jim, hopefully you can correct me if I'm wrong on this. But basically, this is a little program that is supposed to generate poetry from a basic program on its own.
Brian Weisler has the book for this.
Okay.
There was a whole book. There's a series of books, and Brian has finally gotten the last of them. This was one in that series where basically, all the stuff in that book was written, poetry was written by these kinds of random generators.
We ran that a while back, didn't we?
Yep. I remember that discussion.
Yeah, I think actually Brian showed it, didn't he?
Yeah, he did.
Yeah. And you can even send these poems to the printer. There's a good use of paper. So it created a program called Cheery Tight Dreamers, which sounds almost perverse. And the poem it's generating, I'll just read the first stanza of it. Cheery tight dreamers creep tightly in the wind, and warm real priests melt wetly in the pan.
No, that's not creepy at all.
By David Ladd.
The sad thing is, this is better than most lyrics and songs today already. But
yeah, it is.
True. Yeah.
The action word is today.
Anyway, it's one of those quirky programs that sometimes can actually occasionally produce things that are kind of cool and occasionally just creepy, like this particular one was.
Aye.
Like the second one here that's doing 11 rogue strangers fly softly after the war. That almost sounds like, proper poetry. But I'm kind of scared to let it run through the rest and see what it says. So
Start of a video game there.
Brian Walsh, will it do Vogon poetry?
Yes,
I'm sure.
Yeah,
Yes.
probably.
Oh,
the true test is if your small intestine in a desperate attempt to save humanity leaps straight through your neck and throttles your brain. That's when you know you've done proper Vogon poetry. Next up, the Clueless Engineer. This is part 4 of his Matra Alice / MC10 updates. So he's been trying to get the keyboard to function properly on his Matra Alice. And this, of course, is a keyboard set up as a ZERTY, not QWERTY. And basically, the keyboard controller is built into the 6803 CPU itself because it's a microcontroller. It's not just a CPU. So it's got its own little section of RAM, and it's got its own, hardware I/O addresses and stuff, that it's not just a CPU. And he suspected after trying a couple other things that was what the problem is. And he ordered some of it, and he basically covered a couple other videos where he's looking more at an MC10 because he was waiting for the chips to come in. The chip came in, and I'll spoil that part a little bit and say it worked. That actually did solve the problem. But then he goes through and starts doing some extra upgrades. So he does the 8K RAM internal upgrade, which means that it'll actually have access as video RAM. This is something that it's mentioned on Ed Snyder's site, and a few other people have done that as well. I think even Darren Atkinson's MCX Basic supports that, so you can actually do P mode 3 and 4. So for the author of them, I mean, if you want to trust that customers will do this upgrade, which is not a simple plug-in, a RAM pack in the back type thing, but actually you have to desolder and put in a bigger RAM chip, etc. But you can actually get it so that you can actually do a proper, full 6K graphics screen like the VDG is capable of and the Coco is capable of. One thing I do not know, and I don't know if anybody here on the panel is aware of enough of the hardware of the MC10 to know, on the MC10, because there's no SAM, can you change the address of where the screen starts as opposed to the size of the screen? Could you do page flipping of, say, 2 P mode 1 screens with this upgrade if you put it 8K RAM right in the main?
I don't think so. I think it's pretty hardwired.
Okay, that's what I kind of suspected. But anyway, yeah, he goes through and goes through some upgrades here, gets the keyboard working. There's some other little things I'm not going to tell you because you'll have to watch the video to find out. But yeah, he gets a lot of things working this episode, which is kind of what he's not been able to do the last while because he tried a few things and the keyboard was not fixing. Next up after that, Robert Sieg has been working on his color conversion utility that he's doing. This will take a 24-bit BMP at 128 by 96 and try to convert it down to a 16 color. Now, this, of course, the MC10 does not have a 16 color. It only has a 4-color modes. And so this is actually running in VMC 10, which is an emulator. And this is an extended mode they added to the emulator only. Now, one thing I don't know, and once again, you MC10 guys might be able to help me on this. I do know there's a Coco VGA option for the MC10 by Brendan Donahue. Does that have an equivalent mode that would be compatible that you could use? Because I do know it has a 128 by 96 16 color mode, but I don't know if it's done the same way or same color resolution mapping or anything else. That might be one way to use these pictures, but he's getting the algorithm working better. You can see here, like here's the original 24-bit of a waterfall with the sun peeking through the clouds thing down to 16 colors at a pretty low res. That's actually not too bad. And he said that basically, like somebody asked him in the comments here, like, is this actually running on real MC10? He goes, no, it's just on the emulator. But he's learned so much about doing the color conversion down from 24-bit down to the 16 color that he can now use that to make the 4-color, getting it down to what a native MC10 can do more accurate than he was able to do before. So look forward to seeing some of his screenshots of stuff all the way down to like the 4-color basic mode that the MC10 supports. But I'm thinking the Coco VGA does have a 16 color mode that we've shown on the show before. So maybe this actually would become useful. Because I'm trying to remember the Coco VGA. I think the original versions of the boards had a 512 color palette to choose from or something like that. And then the later ones actually had like a 32,000 or 65,000.
Yeah,
did somebody answer that? Sorry.
Versions.
Yeah, they're conversions.
So was I right on that, Alan, roughly, or?
Yeah, the original one had a limited number of palette entries, and then there's an update later that expanded them.
Okay, but you're still only allowed to use 16 colors at once on the screen. You just get a much wider palette to choose from.
I think so. I mean, that he's got a cool table up on the Coco VGA webpage that shows what those extra bits are.
Okay.
The files are VG6 files.
I just hope he can get a Coco VGA getting manufactured again, because that's been out for 3 years now, and I mean that affects MC10 and Coco people.
I've made all kinds of pictures for that, and no one can really use it. you could run the program on your Coco or on your PC and look at the pictures that we made, but you can't run it on a machine without the hardware.
Yeah. So I'm hoping, I think it was because the microcontroller he was using is not being made anymore or something like that.
That's correct. Yeah.
And I think the last time I talked to him, which is months, that he'd found a replacement chip that he thought would work, wouldn't take too much to convert the code over to get it to run. So hopefully he gets those going again. Next up, I'm hoping some of the people in the chat from the UK or Europe might be able to help me with this, because I have no idea what the heck a snorker is. The name of the channel itself is What Ho Snorkers, and they just wrote a basic little extended basic program for the Dragon that does some graphics and does little musical bits in between, all in BASIC, drawing a weird looking character. And I'm not sure if this is like a reference to maybe an old TV show, or maybe it's just this guy's web page or what. I have no idea, but it's only a minute long, so I thought I'd show it.
It's a colloquialism for sausage.
Sorry, the sound was overdriving you there. What?
It is a colloquialism for sausages, according to the Wikipedias. May have been Royal Navy slang origin, probably derived from an earlier dialect for a young pig. Snorker is a widespread word for a piglet.
Okay, this is the weirdest looking piglet I've ever seen, then, if that's what he's meaning to do.
This isn't creepy at all.
They just keep drawing these little additions to the picture as it's playing this little tune. I have no idea what this has to do with pigs, if anything.
Right.
So I'm still mystified as to what this means. So 60 in the chat, of course, is from Britain, says nobody I know ever used the term. So your guess is as good as mine. Okay, next up, Julian Brown has posted some board design updates for his Dragon ATX prototyping setup. And he apologizes for lots of pictures. That's fine by me, because I'm more of a picture-oriented guy than a text guy when it comes to this hardware stuff. The boards currently break the standard Dragon 3264 into separate functions, which we talked about before. It's like a separate thing for the video out, so you can swap the PAL, the NTSC, etc. CPU and the SAM are mounted together initially. The SAM could be omitted in favor of the FPGA set up on the main backplane board. This board could be extended to include the 256K banker configuration, which is basically compatible with the one that Ken has, the actual JNR banker. RAM and ROM go together in one board. If the FPGA is used, this could be swapped out for just the ROM, either standard 16K or the big flash ROM setup I'm working towards. The current ROM is 32K, so it could be a Dragon 32 setup or switched for the two 16K Dragon 64 ROMs. All in a single package. RAM is just 64K in this version, but he wants to expand that to 256K, as it needs just a jumper to make it work correctly. The PIA board is one of the more complex and still needs some work. I've squeezed in a PS2 keyboard adapter to save on trying to figure out how to fit a standard keyboard. The video board is basically the RGB conversion circuit laid out again, but with the carrier mounting points for mezzanine boards, so I can use the same PCB to test any of the video boards I've created so far. The final board so far is the audio generator. This adds 1 or 2 PSG chips. For those paying attention, that means I have a single slot left on the backplane board. I can either use this for a Dragon 64 UART, actual serial chip, 6551 was the original, or it could be used to integrate other hardware or both. The disambiguated PIA select line for PIA1, the fast PIA, still has 4 spare blocks of 4 bytes, so there's plenty of options on this front. My last bit of the plan is to integrate a logic analyzer into the backplane. I've just acquired a pair of the latest 24-channel Pico-based analyzers. Now I have 3. This gives me 72 channels, but with 96 possible digital signals. I will need another one still. And then he's got some of the board layout stuff here. So here's the 64K plus RAM plus 32K ROM. Here's the ATX PIA board design. Proto VGG board design. Proto sound generator design. And CPU and SAM. And we're back at the beginning. It's all cool to see where this project's going here. Making a modular Dragon, basically, we can just swap different things in and out and upgrade whole chunks of what was on the main motherboard originally for something else if something better comes along in a year or two. And my last one is near and dear to my heart. I have no idea how to pronounce his name, so my apologies. Tomeu Capo has got his Dragon 64 up running OSINE level 1 with a TSMon login session linked to a Televideo 910 serial terminal. So he's actually running the terminal as basically the equivalent of an extra window. And I'll just zoom it up so you guys can see the screen a little bit.
In Coco reverse video.
Yeah. So level 1, obviously. So this is basically Coco 1, 2 level. And he's got 156 pages. A page in this case is 256 bytes, free. And he's running the actual shell and Cisco shell. So he's got the Dragon running on its own screen, which is a picture here, but it's running its own thing. And you're logged in with TSMon, the time sharing monitor, as a second process with could be a different user number, doing his own thing on the Dragon at the exact same time, multitasking back from 83.
I did feel a little shudder when you talked about pages free.
And here he decides he's firing up Basic 9, so the Dragon's still running its its own screen on its own off to the side you can't see, but then he actually fires up Basic 9 from 1980 on the terminal, and actually is at the basic prompt and can start editing a program if you wanted to. And this is exactly what he did with work. In fact, the Televideo, because it's got these nice smooth curved edges, reminds me a lot of the ADM 3A terminals we initially started with. So that's except we didn't have a numeric keypad. I think that's where the dials were for the brightness and contrast, and there might even be dip switches in there.
You had to have the Atom 3A to get the keypad, I think.
Such a modern looking TV.
The ADM 22 is actually my favorite because that actually had like block graphics similar to the TRS-80 Model 1 and 3, like the 2x3 pixels. Plus the keyboard is detachable and a little ribbon cable, or not ribbon, but a little a guitar coil cable. So you can like stretch out on your lap and sit back in your chair. That was awesome.
Hey, Ron, so latest in 70s styling.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, all the swoopy fiberglass looking.
Swoopy edges, yep.
Yeah.
Now, I'm glad that the arrow key layout here has not been followed through to this day.
Oh, it's Commodore. Oh, my God.
That's bad for text editing. That's bad for playing games. That's just bad all the way around.
Apple IIe and Apple IIc. Hey, Julian Brown said that he placed an order for the backplane earlier and should all be in motion in a few weeks.
Oh, cool. Julian, we might have to have, once you get this all up and running, we might have to have you come on the show and demo it all and show how it all gets put together.
Definitely.
Do you guys remember back in the day on in the Rainbow? This is Coco 1 days. My first computer was the Coco 1. It had 64K, but it also had a board in there that was called 128K, the Easy Way, and it was an add-on board, and it had software that you could,
bank switch. I do remember that article.
Okay, I had one of those in there, and the thing worked, but I didn't know exactly how to use it, and I throw programs up there, and you could switch between banks and play different games, but
yeah, Ken's got one of the JNR commercial ones, a 256K model. They also sold a 512K model too, but it had some utilities for like, I think there was a RAM driver you could use for it. You could load a bunch of graphic screens, so you could like instantly switch. I wanted to write, say, in a graphic adventure game with like 50 rooms, you could preload all the room graphics at once, so then just switch when you need it instantly.
Yeah. So the big thing at our computer club at the time was that when I got the machine, I was bragging that oh, you have a 16K? Oh, that's nice. I have a 128K Coco one. Well, how does I said, I tell them about the ad, and then I got to demo it at the club meeting. And that was cool,
Yeah, I do want to follow up on Snorker. 8-Bits in the Basement, of course, is originally from Ireland, I think, and he's currently living in France. He says, remembers a Snorks cartoon, Little Guys Who Lived in the Sea. So he is familiar with that. That sounds of it.
Okay, so stupid animated guys. Yeah, we could do that.
Yeah.
Maybe they're random or something. Yeah.
Anyway, this is kind of like a microcosm of my work back in the late 80s.
I know
and
what's
90s.
wrong with this. That's a very small screen compared to like an Atom 3. This looks like
the
like
outside bezel is quite a bit larger than a.
It's a tiny little screen. That's why there's no room for a keyboard on this one.
Was there a terminal with 6809 in it?
I'm sure there was. I just don't remember what it was. Like an exerciser is lots more than a terminal.
Well,
yeah, like probably.
Isn't that the one that Steve Stroh had? He used to store it behind him.
Yeah, and Brian Weezer has one too.
Yeah,
it's a cross-development platform. Sorry, go ahead, Henry.
Yeah, that looks like the screen there's about a little bit bigger than that of a Capro, maybe along the orders of Model 3. So like between 9 and 12 inches.
Yeah, you could put your hand across it with your fingers out and pretty much.
Yeah, so about 9 inches or something like that. About a Capro screen.
A lot better than an Osborne. Let's just put it that way.
Oh God.
Yes, sirree.
Well,
pull out that Watchman again, Rob.
Yeah, I was going to just tell you that the Watchman has little teeny tiny characters on there. He moved real close. Yeah, then you have a nose blur on the screen from getting too close.
I would have killed for this thing though, because what my experience was tung 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 as the teletype pounded out these characters on my terminal. I would have loved this screen, small as it is, funky as it is. Give it to me.
So this is one place where I was really jealous about the Dragon 64 versus the Coco 1 and 2, because I mean, obviously we both had OS 9, but the Dragon 64 had a 6551 base serial port built into the machine itself. So you had that right off the bat. If you bought OS 9, you could be a multi-user system instantly. Just plug this in and go, or another computer. On our case, the Bitbanger sucked for doing anything like this. So you'd have to go buy an R32 pack and a multi-pack because you only have one slot and you still need a disk drive to run OS 9. So it was just like way more expensive and way more in a pain in the ass.
So did you also notice you do not want a user on the console on OS 9 when you're going multi-user stuff? The console user really drags the system down compared to any other
no, I don't
user.
remember that at all, actually.
Huh. I sure
Mind you,
saw it.
all of our serial ports were interrupt driven.
Well, yeah,
and
but
used like SCCI and like not the stock drivers, like we maxed everything out.
That was the thing. The console driver used so much extra effort to do its display and so forth, in my experience, that you would rather have 3 serial users than a serial user and a console user.
Are you talking stock OS 9? Or are you talking Nitrous 9 here?
Stock OS 9, I guess, in general.
Yeah, because Nitrous 9, once we TFM'd all the screen scrolling and stuff, it made a huge difference.
Oh, okay, that's probably it then.
Like for one thing, the TFM command's interruptible, which means the serial port would get 4,800 baud characters, whatever. Meanwhile, it's clearing the screen like 3 times faster than a stack blast, so or scrolling the screen. So it became a lot less noticeable. You'd still notice it with a few priority changes. It wasn't bad.
Okay.
How many of us guys have a Dragon? I have one.
I do not.
Anyone else?
No.
You never owned one, Curtis?
Nope.
Britanno got it December of 2016.
Okay. Who else?
David Ladd does. I don't know if he's
David
still on
Ladd
the
does.
call.
I've been wanting to get my hands on some dragons, but that they haven't shown up or been reasonably priced.
Yeah.
Yeah. I always think to myself, I got plenty of Cocos, but I only have one dragon, and I hate to screw it up, by using
Right?
it all the time.
You need 2 dragons, right?
Yeah, one.
Yeah, one for daily use and one as a pristine museum.
Oh, I
piece.
screwed that one up.
Yeah, one you beat up, and the other one, it's like still pretty.
Exactly.
Tom Eric just to make you mad here in the chat goes, I have 7.
Oh, there you go. One for everybody.
Those are all PAL ones, though, I bet.
One for every day of the week.
Well, PAL just slows you down. You have to get stuff to make it work.
Well, no, they live in Europe. It works just fine.
Right.
No, I mean, if you got one of their machines here.
Yeah, you'd have to do some changing. That's where Julian's redesigned board for duplicating the dragon here in the future, where you just swap a card out, and now you've got NTSC, now you've got PAL, now you got CCAM or whatever.
Like that idea, yeah. Just chunk.
Daddy Burrito says, I own a dragon. It's expensive to feed and clean up after it. He lives in my basement.
Right. You need it in that cold weather.
All right, that's all the news we have for this week. I just had to end it on a high note, i.e. OS 9.
Sorry, I had a nightmare.
Hey, Curtis, wasn't there a 4th story about John Whitmer Sports? Or did you already cover that?
Sorry, which one?
So the Tomeu Capo is the 3rd of 4 stories in Dragon 3264. Did you do
Oh,
them out
right,
of
yeah,
order?
because that doesn't have an actual link, so it's just something I have to say. So last week we mentioned that John Whitworth was doing another run of the Supersprite FM Plus boards because he had old parts in to sell them as kits. He had 7 of them. They're all sold out this week, so they're already all gone. So. And I don't know if he's going to be making any more. Hopefully he can let us know, but
There's a new drunk sibling episode out.
Is it Coco related?
Yeah. It's got my game Pipes in there.
Oh, that's why you noticed.
That's right. And they actually half read the manual this time.
Wow.
Oh, did I give him enough crap last time? So they did.
Yeah.
You can play it now?
Half of it.
Yeah, they must have added that in since this morning because I didn't get a chance. I had work come in last night, so I didn't actually do any research till this morning. So they must have brought it in.
It says 22 hours ago. So yeah.
Hey, Curtis, real
I should have
quick.
caught that. Okay, go ahead.
Did you? I was kind of half asleep, as is normal during news. Did you happen to notice that? Did you happen to mention anything about the Coco show being on Sunday, March the 2nd?
No, I forgot about that. You're right.
Yeah, might want to mention that.
So tomorrow in the afternoon, I don't remember what time they're recording live. Is it 3 or 4 Eastern?
I thought it was like 6 p.m., but I'd have to go and look.
Brent and Aaron will be recording a episode of the Coco Show reviewing the game Get Me Out of Here, which is a Coco 3 single room escape room puzzle game, I guess is the best way to describe it. We've actually talked about the show a couple years ago when they released it, but it was written by Paul Thayer and his brother Tim. So actually the 2 brothers together designed the game. And the people in their chat have actually been playing it, and a couple of them have solved it now, I think. It's a game genre that, being my age, I never even heard of before. But apparently with people 10, 15 years younger than me, it's a lot more common, which a lot of the audience of the Amigos is. So a lot of them knew instantly what to start doing in there, and I was totally lost when Paul sent it to me for testing the first time. I'm looking at it and going, what am I doing? What is this?
Clicking on pixels, trying to see if it does anything.
Yeah.
Hey,
Once you kind of learn what you have to do, like how that type of a game works, because I had never seen that before. It actually was a bit of fun. I never solved it, but I actually got pretty far into it back in the day. There's an entry for it on my website. I actually had to correct a link, so thanks to Brent for pointing it out to me, because I actually had a case-sensitive character wrong on the link, so it actually been broke since I moved it to the new server. But it's fixed now, so you can download it there. I think it's also on the Computer Archive, but yeah, if you want to check it out, they're live streaming on Twitch and YouTube tomorrow.
Yep, and that'll be 6 p.m. Eastern. I just checked the Discord to see what time it was.
Okay, thanks.
Hey, Curtis.
Yep.
Julian Brown says John will be making a new version that uses new hardware. So
Oh,
I guess
okay.
the
Ooh, nice.
Sprite board shall return newer and better.
Oh, awesome. Hopefully backwards compatible somewhat. So like, oh, Pairs, Rats, AGD games still work.
He's got to do the whole dang thing again, and we got to talk about it.
That's a couple hundred games you'd have to redo and reassemble. Oh, Henry joined us too. I didn't even notice. Welcome, Henry.
Hey there. I've got video problems today, but guess why I'm 3 hours late? I'm back in California. I was ready for a 2 p.m. show.
Oops.
Just time zones. They're just trouble.
Time zones and daylight savings. That's hell on earth.
Yeah, and video under Linux. The built-in laptop camera is not detected. I guess it needs a reboot.
That sucks.
Did you have an update on your Pico stuff? Or Bonobo board? Sorry. Yeah.
Yeah, so I've been, my new boards that I ordered 50 of, those check out and they work.
Cool.
I was a little scared at first that I had problems on the Coco 2. The Coco 2 has my Coco 2 I was using has a 6809, whereas the Coco 3 had a 6309, and I think the timing of my halt signal was working on the 6309 and not on the 6809, and I moved it a cycle earlier, and then it works because I used the halt line in the booting process in the spoon feeding. So yeah, software fixed that.
Oh, good.
Whew, that was close.
On my
Welcome to my world.
Yeah, that's right, Ray. That's exactly right. And then in the other project, the operating system, I'm making progress there as well, and I'll have something to show soon.
Cool. Look forward to it.
Just to coming.
Late breaking news.
I guess we should wake Mark B up, huh?
I'm here.
Yeah.
Getting
probably.
a text about Mom.
I still find it amazing. There's so much Coco and Dragon news every week.
It is amazing.
Yep.
You would think for a 40-some-year-old computer, there just wouldn't be anything new.
Well, we keep instigating, so.
Yeah. Unfortunately, we're all enablers here.
Yeah. Anyway, that's all I have for news. So, and thanks for the late breaking one by Henry.
Okay. We're ready to call it a day.
Yep. I'm getting hungry again.
This concludes another episode of the CoCoNation, the world's leading live interactive talk show featuring the Tandy Color Computer. For all things the CoCoNation, visit us on the web at thecoconation.com. We'd love to hear from you. Send feedback, suggestions, even segments via email to show@thecoconation.com. The CoCoNation show would not exist without the community and its cast and crew. The CoCoNation theme song, copyright 2022, D. Bruce Moore. Mixed, mastered, and produced by D. Bruce Moore. The CoCoNation is over. Join us on the Coco Discord server. Coco forever.
Cat, get out of here, you brat.
That's the way to come back from a break.
I'll just put it in the chat, Curtis.
Same thing, walking over my keyboard. So, okay, well, that should do it for this week. And okay, I guess that for now, it's bye.
Everybody saying
Bye,
happy
folks.
Bye, buddy. See you next week.
See you next week.